This boy was trapped on a floating island in the abyss. His name was Sora Mukujima, just a normal boy. Now, he was alone in a world infested with monsters. At first, he only ran to survive, but eventually, he had to fight, because easy times create weak men, and hard times create strong men. 10 years later, he was already losing his sanity, as he continued absorbing the power of more and more monsters. 50 years later, he was still fighting, devouring monsters without stopping. Over that time, Sora massacred more than 4 million creatures. When he finally left the abyss, Sora was no longer human. Now he is the greatest beast in a world that has also been invaded by monsters. He was there again. It was melancholic. A floating island in the smoke, the Smoky Sky Island, with its ruined Western-style buildings. It was as if no life had ever existed there. He noticed something there was human. That man stared at him and dispelled the smoke, telling the boy to come. He said he would be waiting for him at the edge of the abyss. The protagonist then felt a connection. Waking up startled in his bed, he muttered that it was the same strange dream again. But someone shouted that he would be late, and Sora replied that he was on his way. The young man felt he knew that man from his dream, and the abyss too. He wiped the mirror clean, wondering if he had been studying too much lately. Sora spit out the water, and his father looked at him, asking if he'd overslept. The boy asked his dad not to treat him like a kid since he was 15. Sora grabbed the mouthwash. He complained that if they didn't live in such a small apartment, he wouldn't have to see him naked every day. His dad said when he got rich, he'd let them live in a huge house. Then he and Riku would have their own rooms. But Sora said he'd been saying that for 5 years. His father commented that life had gotten easier since Riku joined the defense forces. Sora agreed. It had been 3 years since his brother joined. He planned to join in the future too, and then it would be time to say goodbye to this lively life. To his father, who joked around a lot and wasn't reliable at all, and to his mother, who seemed strict, but loved them very much. Sora thought it was great that they were there, and if life could just stay this way, it would be perfect. But he always knew this peaceful life would end one day. What he didn't expect was that it would end like this. The tower came to them. The Sora of that time didn't know yet the amount of change that tower would bring to human history, but what he did know was that this tower was connected to his dreams. His brother had said to just follow the instructions, and he would be home soon. He promised in a weak voice. That was the night they lost contact with his brother. The news said there would be no problem as long as people stayed home, but it wasn't long before the broadcasts stopped too. And now the same information was repeated over and over on the radio. Then the order came to evacuate to a shelter. His mother left a letter for his brother when they went to the evacuation shelter. Everything they saw on the way seemed to point to one thing. The soldiers passing in their vehicles had expressions of despair on their faces. Their vehicles were covered in horrible claw marks, and from inside them came a horrible, rotting smell. His father asked what was happening to the world. At the temporary evacuation shelter, the rooms were packed with refugees, yet almost no one spoke a word. It was as if everyone was just waiting for their lives to end. His mother called her son, and Sora followed her. But even in the silence, there were troublesome people, and they did everything to make their presence known. One grabbed a child's hand, asking how he dared to steal his bread. The boy tried to argue that he didn't steal it. They had only given one loaf to each person, so the man had probably already eaten his own, but he kicked the boy in the stomach. Everyone there wondered if no one was going to do anything about it. That man just laughed, saying he wasn't full yet, and it should be fine to take this bread. So the situation was over, and this bread was his. It would only be for a few days. It's not like the kid would die. But Sora's father touched his shoulder and asked why he was doing this when he knew the current situation. The man told the old geezer to mind his own business. However, Sora's father shouted for him to give back the child's bread. The delinquent charged with his fist raised, telling him to shut up. Sora's father just landed a kick on him, making the delinquent fall flat on his back. He handed the bread back to the boy as the delinquent tried to get up. His father just gave him a cold stare. The delinquent wiped the blood from his mouth, complaining. He spat on the ground, saying he would remember this. Sora called out to his father, but he replied not to worry, that he'd keep an eye on that guy. Even in death, Sora would never forget that man. Eiji Kagawa was the bastard who took pleasure in bullying Sora during his school life, repeating the abuse every single day. Suddenly, a soldier entered, announcing it was an emergency message. Everyone must leave the evacuation shelter through the back and get into one of the trucks. A businessman questioned why. The soldier said it was confidential and he was sorry, but he couldn't say. The businessman pressed the issue, shouting that first they forbid them from leaving their homes for 2 whole days, and then they make them evacuate to a place like this without explaining anything. He asked what they were paying taxes for, but a loud noise caught everyone's attention. The soldier warned that they had arrived and everyone needed to run fast. Sora called to his mother and father to get out of there quickly. He had a bad feeling about what was happening. The soldier blocked the door, saying he couldn't hold them back anymore, and they needed to get in the vehicles now. But the door was broken down by several creatures with weapons in their hands. They were orcs. from what could be seen through the glass. Sora wondered what the hell was happening to this world. He ran, screaming for help because they were monsters. His parents urged him to hurry, running with the other people toward the truck. Sora shouted that it couldn't hold any more people and they should get in first. He lifted his parents onto the truck, but his father held his hand. People pushed him away, yelling not to bother with him because the truck was full. Sora cursed under his breath. Then he said he would go to another truck. He noticed that the other one was also full, and all the ones around him too. Finally, when he reached the last one, it was empty. He tried to climb up. AG extended a hand to him. Sora thanked him for the help, but AG just smiled and repeated, "Thank you." The protagonist was startled by this. AG said that he was the one who should be thankful, because he was going to die in his father's place, like the trash he was. Sora thought his life was over, falling and being trampled on the ground. He just didn't want to go to hell yet, begging for someone's help, until a ghost formed in front of him. The man called out to the boy, and Sora recognized him as the man from his dreams. Then the ghost said he would be waiting for him at the edge of the abyss. Suddenly, Sora woke up in another place. He wondered if that had been a dream and where the hell he was. Then a weapon moved toward him. The stone tool struck the side of his head. A goblin was attacking him with full force. Sora got up, wondering where his mother and father were and why he was the only one there, and if this was hell and he had already died. The goblin's attack then hit him in the face. Sora thought it was a damn monster, wondering why it wouldn't leave him alone and what the hell was going on here. Sora ran from the monster as fast as he could. He thought about the giant tower that appeared out of nowhere, the bastard who threw him off the truck, the mysterious old man from his dream, and this monster that was trying to kill him. They were all bastards. His pupil turned purple. He screamed that they could all go to hell and ran toward the goblin. He took its life, thinking that he had survived. Sora reflected that up close. It looked like something out of a game. He wondered what the black text near its chest was. It looked like a rank. Suddenly, everything around him began to shake. A crystal emerged from the goblin's chest. Sora thought this was strange. The crystal levitated above the goblin. The stone moved toward him, entering his body in a single thrust. Sora realized all his wounds had been healed. Not only that, but he also felt much stronger. He wondered if he could level up by defeating enemies like in a game, and if there might be more of these things on this tiny island. It was better to investigate so he wouldn't get ambushed. Sora walked all over the place, but there were no monsters or other paths, and if he wanted to get out, that might be the only option. Seeing a floating structure in the sky, Sora started walking up the levitating stairs, thinking he was somewhere around the smoky sky island. This didn't look good at all. In games like this, these are the best monster territories. If this were a game, he'd just respawn if he fell. But he didn't want to test whether this was a game or not. He finally made it to the top, as the stairs ended there. He then entered a cave. Suddenly, a torch lit up, positioned over a pit with a door at the bottom. Sora looked down at the door from where he stood. He walked forward, axe in hand. He realized he'd never seen these symbols before, but their meaning seemed to be entering his mind. The fragments belonged to the bearers, and by acquiring them all, he would earn the right to leave the abyss. Sora understood that he had to collect all the fragments to get out. Now he was motivated. On second thought, that monster wasn't even that strong. He was going to survive and get out of here. He opened the dungeon door. The first layer of the abyss was a 900-meter area, and the number engraved on that monster's body was a 1. The second layer was double the size, and one of the monsters had the number 2. The third was triple, and one of the 4 monsters had the number 3. The fragments were only found on the bodies of the numbered monsters, and they were the key to advancing. The higher the number, the stronger the monsters would be. The most worrying part was how difficult it was becoming to find more keys. The size of the area doubled each time he advanced, as did the number of monsters, but he was also getting stronger, striking one of the monsters with all his might. As Sora climbed through the layers, the variety of monsters kept increasing. On the 12th floor, he found the monsters that had attacked the shelter that day, but now, they were no match for him. There were so many monsters now that his senses began to dull. He reached the 21st layer with 1 million monsters. When he reached the 30th floor, the number of monsters had already climbed to 500 million. Finding the keys was like finding a needle in a haystack. Some of the numbered monsters were protected by groups of other monsters, while others hid in caves. The most annoying thing, for sure, was the time it took to kill each one of them, but in the end, he managed to defeat the monsters. He had kept moving forward, opening another door of the abyss. Sora was on the 42nd layer of the abyss, with 2 trillion monsters. The creatures began to roar for him. Sora screamed that this was incredible. He fought every single one of them without stopping. He wondered what year it was, but the concept of time no longer mattered. Here, there was only the concept of losing your life and defeating hordes. He then glanced to the side. Sora thought that taking the lives of monsters was his way of humiliating them. He charged forward and simply ripped a monster in half. Holding its head in one hand, Sora looked at the rising smoke with the monster's spine in the other. He wondered how many monsters he had killed now, but he would count later. Dropping the head on the ground, he questioned if it wasn't time for the key to appear in this place. Suddenly, the wall shattered. An insect-like creature appeared before him. Sora said that was quite an entrance. He wanted to know if it was the key. He then used the ground to push off, leaping towards the monster's head. It didn't matter how strong they were. It was always the same. Even the monsters that thought they were powerful were defeated in a single blow. Sora denied this immediately, because all that strength had lost its meaning. He then questioned where the key for Layer 24 was. It should have appeared by now. He screamed that he was fed up. That year, 20 towers suddenly appeared around the world. Before humanity could understand them, monsters poured out and nearly annihilated the human race. Most people lost their lives. That day became known as Judgment Day. Some survivors awakened and gained access to a mysterious system. Those who awakened gained overwhelming power. Human society was rebuilt, and the awakened founded hunter guilds. After all that had happened, Sora chased after a beast, yelling for it to show its stats. But he was surprised when chains grabbed the beast, and voices said it had just used a summoning scroll and they had to stop it. Sora wondered if those were human voices, and if that was an exit. A smile spread across his face. Since there was a way out, he leaped towards the monster. A system tried to warn that the abyssal summon was incapable of transferring more than 2 living beings. Sora thought he wouldn't let anyone get in his way. He stared coldly at the system and clenched his fist. Meanwhile, outside S City on Earth, a girl was running away. She thought she had to lose them fast. She was Yu Sonozaki, level 19. The girl tripped on a vine, falling to the ground. She thought this was bad. A female mage complained that this was a pain. The giant man beside her told her to hand over the scroll, since a level 60 scroll wasn't something a rookie could handle. Choji Shido said to hand it over, or he'd show no mercy, but Aika asked him not to kill her. Yu shouted that hunter versus hunter combat was forbidden, and they were breaking the rules. Shosei Toshiba, a level 38 barbarian, scoffed at the mention of rules. He replied that he made the rules here. She should hand over the scroll, and he might let her keep all her limbs intact. Yu said that if she were him, she wouldn't mess with her. Aika yelled that this was bad, and she was going to use the forced summon. Shosei insulted her, staring coldly as he prepared an attack and demanded she hand over the scroll, but his sword stopped in midair. Shosei realized it was a teleportation circle. Yu said that if she was going to die anyway, she'd take them with her. Shosei cursed that it was a forced summon. Aika replied that no one could control an advanced monster that was forcibly summoned like this, yelling for him to stop her now. Yu screamed for them all to die. A bolt of energy began to push all the awakened back. Shosei said the energy was overwhelming and that this wasn't good for them. An immense power flooded the area. The awakened said that it had finally appeared, but they were met with just a level 3 Cerberus. They started laughing, saying that all this fuss was just for a low-level monster. They had been wondering what kind of monster she would summon, since she'd risked her life to protect that scroll. But then, an arm burst through the Cerberus. Sora tore the monster apart with extreme ease. Everyone wondered what that was, if it was a humanoid monster. Yu then called out to him. Sora just repeated that he was out. He screamed that he had finally escaped that hellhole. He burst out laughing. Shosei said that his laughter alone was enough to make his body freeze. Aika wondered who this was. Sora stopped laughing and looked at her, approaching at a terrifying speed. He gave her a wide smile. He asked if this was Earth, and the girl confirmed it. Sora said he was finally back. He asked if she was cosplaying or something. Shosei charged forward, yelling not to underestimate the Tiger's Roar Guild, but none of his attacks had any effect on him. Sora just glanced back in anger. Shosei said that he's a monster. The protagonist started to see him as an orc. He then grabbed his neck and demanded to see his number. Shosei questioned what he was talking about. Sora realized what he was doing and let go of the man's neck. Shosei fell to the ground, having wet his pants. He got up, and the others ran to their boss. Sora just told them to get lost. Shosei screamed that he wouldn't forget this. Yu reflected that he had absurd power and horrible scars. She wondered who he was, because he couldn't be a monster summoned from the abyss by the scroll. Sora asked how many years it had been since the towers appeared. The girl said it had been 5. The protagonist wonders if this is really Earth and why she is dressed like that. Yu explains that a system appeared for humans. Sora asks if the world changed that much in the 5 years he spent in the abyss. The girl tells him that City S was hit by the 7th large-scale invasion. The protagonist reflects that it's where he was born. He then asks about the current state of City S, but the girl says it was completely destroyed, but they sent strong people there, so they should be able to take out the monsters. Sora asks which way City S is. Yu just points behind her, and the protagonist vanishes. She thinks that he went alone, but a mysterious man appeared. and it would be better to tell her sister. Meanwhile, Shosei's group walks through the city until a mysterious figure appears before them. They wonder who he is. The hooded person says they can feel his presence on them, so they have 3 seconds to say where he is. The 4 of them are terrified by this. Shosei asks if they're messing with him and what that was all about, but the person easily cuts them in half, saying the 5 seconds were up. All members of that group lost their lives. At the tower's vanguard, the headquarters of the Tiger's Roar Guild, a girl reports no signs of life from Master Toshiba's group, and Sonozaki's whereabouts, along with the scroll, are unknown. Her boss complains that they were trash, because those guys can't even defeat a level 19 summoner. Rich Mukai, the level 118 storm priest, says they all lost their lives in a single blow. She must find out who did it, and the secretary agrees. Richt orders them to capture Sonozaki and make her explain, because he will kill anyone who messes with his men. Suddenly, Sora rushes past him. Richt notes an incredible scent of blood and wonders who he is, because in that direction lies a fallen zone. He reflects that the invasion is on another level. There's no doubt powerful forces are involved, so the tower that has been dormant for 5 years has begun to move. He then orders all search parties to retreat. This was an emergency. Sora keeps leaping without stopping, until he reaches the fallen zone of City S. He thinks that in the 5 years he was trapped in the abyss, this place turned into a hell, but in the abyss, he remembers himself. He was just a weakling, but he became very strong, with his senses numb. He had almost become a monster, but the memories of his family kept him sane. The monsters he once feared, now, they're nothing but small fry. He then prays for his father, mother, and brother to be safe. City S, once full of life, was now in ruins. All the buildings were shattered as if a massive earthquake had struck, and yet there were no signs of monsters killing anyone. Since the people were evacuated, no one was supposed to be living here. He rips the door off and announces he's home, but everything inside was destroyed. Sora says he knew it would be empty, but came anyway, since this place was filled with happy memories. Then he notices something on the table. It was a letter where his parents said everyone claimed he had lost his life, but they both refused to believe it. So they packed his things and left them as they were. They are sure he will come back. They even organized his favorite clothes by size, from small to large, so he can wear new outfits. There's a map to Shelter 6 in the drawer, and when he reads this, he must go find them. They would be waiting forever. With love. Sora cries as he reads these words. He wonders how strong he is now as he looks at a knife. He cuts his hair because if he's strong enough to end this apocalypse, maybe he can get back the days he lost. He looks at himself in the mirror and thinks about Shelter 6. He heads east as the map showed, straight to Shelter 6, but the road was destroyed. However, he decides to make his own path since it will be faster. Leaping across buildings with speed, one of the beasts tries to appear in front of him, but Sora destroys it with just a scratch. Leaping from building to building, far away, 2 drunkards comment that they heard a noise, but guard duty was boring, until they see something passing overhead, wondering what that was, since they couldn't see it. A young man appears saying he caught it on camera, and that it was a person. In a corner of the lower city, a girl says not to come any closer. She apologizes, saying she only came here to look for food, but the hunters say she's very pretty, and it's been a while since they've seen a woman. AG licks his lips, telling her not to worry because they're nice guys. He'll take good care of her, and the girl begs him not to. AG approaches, telling her not to be afraid. He's going to be gentle, and it would be a shame not to enjoy her. Until Sora appears, saying that some things never change, calling them trash for this. AG asks who's there, and warns him not to interfere if he wants to get out of this okay. He then orders his subordinates to get him. The 2 run, telling the protagonist to go to hell. Sora just stands up and slaps them in the face, taking their lives with just a couple of slaps. A sword approaches his face, but Sora grabs the adventurer's arm and breaks it immediately. AG asks who the hell he is, saying he's part of the Tiger's Roar Guild, and if he touches him, the guild won't let it slide. Sora simply calls out to AG Kagawa, asking if he's forgotten the face of the guy he killed. AG recognizes him and asks if he's Sora, because that was impossible. Sora just stands before him. AG asks how he is still alive. The protagonist laughs at this, moving his hand at monstrous speed. He grabs AG's neck, saying that's right. He came back from the depths of hell because of him. AG starts to lose consciousness. Sora slams him to the ground, saying now it's his turn to go to him, thinking he will shatter every piece of dignity he has. This was his power now, with the voices in his head telling him to kill him because he is the strongest and can do whatever he wants. All he did was torment his life, the pain, the humiliation, and the helplessness. Today, he would get payback for all of it. AG had said he only did it because it felt great to crush his dignity. Sora realizes this and quickly lets him go. AG clutches his neck, coughing. Sora thinks he can't become like him, but he remembers what he had done, because if this scum keeps breathing, more people will lose their lives. He then calls out to Kagawa. He warns him that he tried to kill him and failed, so he won't send him to hell, but he can't just let him go free. Eiji asks what he's going to do. Sora says that for 2 years of making his life a living hell, he deserves 1 punch. For tormenting the weak, he deserved another. And for almost killing him by throwing him from that truck, he needed 2 punches. They would be even if he could withstand 4 punches. Eiji begs for forgiveness, saying if he gets punched now, he'll probably die instantly. Sora tells him not to worry about it and grabs his shirt. He brings his fist close, saying he'll go easy on him. Sora keeps hitting him and announces that was the 2nd punch. Blood splatters on the ground. Sora lands the 3rd blow on him. He tells him to get up, but Eiji just begs him to just kill him already. The protagonist puts his foot on his face, pushing Eiji into the ground. The man falls unconscious. Sora says he lost his arms, legs, and eyes, so it seemed fair. He tells the others to take him to the hospital and to never appear before him again. He leaps away immediately, thinking the cleanup is over and it's time to move on. He needs to go home now, in the safe zone of City S. Soldiers say they would give anything to be on wall guard duty. At least there, they don't have to fight monsters. A blonde-haired man says you'd better not fall from the wall if a monster shows up. They have to stay alert because you never know when one might appear. This is First Lieutenant Tanji Kagura, level 31. Shoki Matsura says this is a safe zone, and monsters rarely appear here as long as they stay vigilant. However, several creatures then break through. It was a level 45 Kraken spawn, a shell type. The soldiers start firing at it, but this only enrages the monster further. One of the soldiers complains that their weapons are useless because its level is too high. The monster then moves in for its next attack. Tanji yells for them to scatter. Now! But the Kraken spawn slams down, cutting soldiers in half. One of the soldiers screams Shun's name. He yells at the damn octopus to go to hell, swearing he's going to wipe it out. The fight against the Kraken spawn continues. The man approaches it with the box. The soldiers keep firing relentlessly, but suddenly they wonder if it has stopped attacking. The Kraken spawn just looks up at the sky. Everyone is surprised by this. Tanji asks if it got scared or something. The monster uses its tentacles to curl up into a ball, then just turns towards the sky. The soldier says he doesn't know what scared it, but this is their chance to win. He throws the explosives, telling it to go to hell. A massive explosion engulfs the octopus. The soldiers wonder if they managed to kill the thing, but the octopus remains coiled up in its tentacles, looking at them without a scratch. The soldier screams that this is impossible. A claw lunges toward the soldier, but Sora smashes the monster's head into the ground. The soldiers are left confused. Tanji says the monster got scared because of that guy on top of it. Tanji says he killed a monster that survived an explosion with a single attack. There aren't many S-rank destructive powers like that, and he thinks he's never seen this guy before. He has to find out who he is, no matter what, using his inspect skill. Tanji is shocked and says it's no use. He can't see his information. The system is telling him to show respect. Suddenly, he starts to fall. The soldiers ask what happened and try to call for the lieutenant. Sora looks back. He says he wants to ask something. He wants to know how far Evacuation Shelter 6 is from here. The soldier says it's 50 kilometers north, but he has to pass through Area X to get there. Sora questions him about this area. The man says it's where they are containing the monster attack, concentrating there to minimize damage from the fighting. The soldiers add that there are many rare drops. Sora wonders if he can get drops from killing monsters in the real world, and if it's really like a game. He wants to know how strong this monster was. The soldier replies that a level 45 is really powerful. Sora asks if that's enough to give them trouble, and wants to know how many monsters above level 45 are in the attack. The soldier replies that there are no more than 100. If there were many monsters like this, humanity would have been extinct long ago. Sora replies that he understands and thanks him. The soldier is left speechless, trying to call out to him quickly. He then says this might not be a reasonable request, but he asks him to go to Area X. If they have a strong hunter like him, he's sure many lives could be saved. Sora says the shortest path to Shelter 6 is through Area X, and the soldier confirms it. The protagonist agrees, and the soldier asks if he's going. Sora says that as he passes through Area X, he'll defeat any monster unlucky enough to cross his path. In the military camp near the front line, the captain sighs, looking tired. A soldier tells him he's finally awake. Tanji asks how long he was unconscious, and the soldier replies it was for 10 minutes. The recovery items dropped by the monsters worked instantly. Tanji asks about the man who saved them earlier. The soldier replies that he went north. Tanji repeats, "North?" He tells him to wait and repeat what he just said. The soldier says he was heading back to Evacuation Shelter 6. Tanji asks if he's going to pass through Area X. The soldier says yes, and that he didn't seem to care, leaving without hesitation. Tanji orders him to contact Central Command immediately. The soldier repeats, "Central Command?" Tanji thinks he has about 10 minutes. He should make it before the scheduled time arrives. The soldier reports that he sent a message on the emergency radio, but wants to know why they're contacting Central Command. Tanji explains that this operation is different from the others. The information was confidential, which is why they weren't informed. But Area X, which serves as the base for this operation, wasn't part of the monster containment region. It was a bomber strike zone. The Central Command receives the call. A secretary announces an emergency call from Area B22. Renji Kumagaya, a level 58 flame mage, says to put them through. The secretary agrees, typing on her keyboard. Tanji reports code BW3422 and says he has a report. A short while ago, a mysterious hunter entered the bombing zone, unaware of the operation. Renji questions why this matters and asks if he called to report his own mistake. Tanji swallows hard and denies it. He believes an emergency broadcast to inform him of the bombing should be considered. He was very strong, and they can't let him lose his life like this. Renji questions this information, wanting to know his level. Tanji replies that he doesn't know. His superior takes a deep breath. He says that an unknown level hunter broke the rules and went into a bombing zone, and now they want an emergency broadcast. The woman beside him says he'll probably be dead before the message even goes out. Renji says he may not have a brain, but he's got a talent for comedy. It seems they haven't learned to fend for themselves. It wasn't his place to interfere with subordinates, but if he reports to his superiors that he obstructed the operation's progress, he will be held responsible. The woman beside him, Mi Tonosaki, level 73, wonders if he's really going to hinder his own subordinates while they're facing such a powerful enemy. She thinks he's a complete idiot. Even so, Kagura, who was trained so carefully, was trying to save a stranger even if it meant abandoning the operation. She wonders just how powerful this guy was. Tanji waits anxiously for the transmission. Mi thinks for a few seconds. She calls for Lieutenant Kagura, trusting that he has no intention of interfering with their plans. But if he doesn't give a convincing reason, she will personally bring him before a military tribunal. Tanji is startled and repeats her words. Mi wants to know if that would be satisfactory for Major Kumagaya. He just scoffs in anger, telling them to give him a reason he can accept. Tanji says he defeated a level 45 baby kraken with a single attack. Mi is stunned by this. She says that means he's more powerful than an A-rank hunter, and wonders if he's an S-rank from the army. Renji replies that it's impossible, as all S-ranks are away on missions, and there's no confirmed signal in B22. He wants to know why he doesn't know his level, and if he shouldn't have been able to see it with the inspect skill. Tanji says that, about that, he couldn't see his level. Mi is shocked. Tanji replies that it's shameful, but after using his skill on him, he lost consciousness due to information overload. This means his level is at least 100. Everyone falls silent. Renji says it's true that this level of strength is rare, but it's not a reason to stop the operation. Nobuo Yuasa, a level 33 mage, agrees, as they can't abandon their military responsibilities for uncertain reasons. Thousands of troops from different units are involved in this operation, and there are enough troops to completely surround the bombing zone and the buffer zone. The original plan was for after the bombing. The soldiers in the garrison zone would defeat any monsters that scattered, but if an emergency broadcast is made, those monsters will react to the sound and gather in one place all at once. If that happens, the area will fall in an instant, and thousands of soldiers will lose their lives, saving one life in exchange for the lives of tens of thousands of soldiers. Even if he's an S rank, it's a risk they would never take. He apologized. Tanji is stunned by this. Mei also remains silent, but she says that in that case, she will reject his request, as they can't waste the efforts of so many people for the sake of one man. That was the final decision. The connection ends shortly after. The soldiers look down at the phone, dejected. Tanji then lowers the phone. A soldier tries to call out to the lieutenant, saying he did what he could, but Tanji just clenches his fist in anger, saying that this is how it has to be, and what matters is the bigger picture. The soldier looks at the lieutenant, noticing the keys on his belt. He snatches them. Tanji asks what he's doing. He tells him to get back here right now because the bombing is about to start. But the soldier says there are still 6 minutes left. There was still time. He heads for a car. Renji shouts, asking if Private First Class Shoki Matsura wants to be court-martialed and ordering him to come back now, but the car continues to speed away. A soldier beside him asks if they should bring him back, but the lieutenant pulls down his cap and says it's all right. He made his decision. He knew what he was getting into. Shoki thinks to himself that he has to make it in time. What Matsura didn't know at that moment was that the man he was trying to save would become the hope for humanity, splitting a high-level monster in a single blow. Shoki complains that he's lost his trail, wondering where the hell he went. This was the fastest route, and he still had 4 minutes. He figures if he can't find him, it means he's moving faster than the car. Area X was just ahead. If he uses the megaphone, the man should be able to hear him, but that would also alert the monsters. With less than 2 minutes left, Shoki turns on the megaphone, deciding it doesn't matter. He then sighs into it, activating the loud broadcast. He thinks of himself as a disgrace to the army. Then he takes a deep breath, looks at the megaphone, and shouts that he's the soldier he helped earlier. "This area is about to be bombed. You need to fall back now." He repeats the call to evacuate. and Sora hears him. He questions the area being bombed and realizes that's why there were no other hunters around. The monsters themselves aren't a threat, but he doesn't know if he can survive the heat of the blast. He has to avoid unnecessary risks. That soldier risked his life to come all the way here and warn him. He can't let him die here. Shoki wonders if he heard him. In the final minute, all the monsters turn in his direction, stomping on the ground. Shoki realizes the monsters were truly drawn to him. He turns the steering wheel, saying he needs to get out of there. He speeds up as the final seconds tick down, yelling that he's still there. But one of the monsters falls to the ground. Sora then knocks on the window. The soldier says, "Thank God you're alive!" Sora wants to know what he meant about this area being bombed, but Shoki realizes there's only 1 second left. He screams, "Time's up!" The soldiers begin to drop the bombs from the planes. Everything in the city starts to be destroyed. Rocks fly towards the car. Sora moves quickly, and a rock rises from the ground. It flies out and blocks the other rocks. A secretary calls the Major General, informing him that the bombing has been completed. Renji orders her to determine how many monsters were eliminated and where the survivors are heading. The secretary reports that the drones detected no signs of life, and a soldier asks where the monsters fled. The woman explains that they are still inside the bombing zone, and the ones in the middle are completely unharmed. "That can't be," Renji says, demanding to see the drone footage. The secretary continues typing, quickly bringing the image up on the main screen for everyone to see. They wonder if it's a shield and if the monsters made it, but they recognize a person in the middle of it all, wearing a hood and standing on top of a creature. Renji says the drone was attacked by a monster. That creature then lets out a roar into the sky. The transmission begins to cut out. One of the creatures crushes the drone in its hand. The secretary announces they've lost all communication with the drone. Mei says they were told this wave of attacks would be different, but she wants to know what that was. They know they're being watched by drones. Nobuo grits his teeth, shouting for all soldiers to be evacuated from the garrison area. Mei completes the order for a full withdrawal, telling them to hold the walls. The secretary says they aren't heading for the walls. Everyone is startled by this. Mei asks where they are going. The woman replies that they are heading to Area B-22. Mei realizes that's where the mysterious hunter went. She orders all remaining drones to Area B-22, saying they need to find out what stopped the monster's advance. The monster area falls silent. Shoki asks if the bombing has finally stopped. He was alive, after all. He celebrates being alive in that moment. Sora says it's too early to celebrate. If he's alive, then so are the monsters, and they were heading their way. He quickly changes his focus and tells him to get down as something was approaching fast. Shoki asks if it's a military drone. The monsters had attacked the drone, something that had never happened before. Sora looks up, telling him to save the surprise for later. He sees dozens of giant monsters in front of them and says they have to get out of that area immediately. Shoki looks at the sky, astonished. He sees the level of all the monsters. He says they are the highest level group in this attack and their leader is level 90. Plus, they don't have a single scratch from the bombing. It was over. They were going to die here. But Sora replies that they are both unharmed too. And if a bombing can't defeat them, he'll just beat them until they can't take it anymore. He tells him to hide in the jeep and then charges forward. Sora scales the monsters, easily defeating each one in his path. The level 90 creature moves its arm, but Sora stops the attack with just one hand, looking coldly at the monster. That creature moves once more, only to be pulled down. Sora leaps as high as he can. The monster senses the power that was coming. The protagonist's strike just gets closer, hitting the creature's face. Its head is disintegrated and falls to the ground. The protagonist comes face to face with the hooded figure, seeing the person on top of the monster. He says he didn't sense his presence. The hooded figure says, "Finally." Tentacles emerge from his hood, moving and touching the monster. The man says he's found him. He calls him the Seed of the Abyss and says the thief must return what is his. Sora asks what he's talking about. The man responds that for the crime of taking another's power, he must pay with his life as an attack approaches. The claws move towards Sora, but the protagonist just catches them in his hand. He says if this is all he has, he won't be able to take his life. An attack comes from above him, with the giant monster slamming its palm down on the protagonist. A drone films this from above. The man thinks that Odin's crow is watching, but dismisses it as a human-made imitation. Sora holds the claw and gets the man's attention, saying that if he wants to take his life, he'd better attack more seriously. He then moves his spear, approaching the monster's body, but it begins to vanish. Sora wonders if he disappeared. The man says it's disgusting to be watched by these repugnant humans. These low-level creations disgusted him. He points a finger at the drone. One of the monsters smashes the drone with its feet. The man then orders them to take down all observers. In a building far away, a soldier complains that his drone was destroyed. He thinks he managed to complete his mission somehow. The reason the monsters changed their path was this guy, a hunter who faced the entire attack alone. He says he needs to inform the commander about him, until something hits the door. The soldier dodges, saying they've been found. Then he lets out a scream of pain. The man laughs, ordering his servants to kill everyone. Sora looks down in anger, remembering Shoki saying that with a strong hunter like him, many people could be saved, and he had gone there to warn him. Shoki says something is stuck in the car. Sora grinds his teeth in anger, saying that to hunt an enemy, you must start with the leader. And if you want to save as many people as possible, you must defeat your enemies as quickly as possible. That giant monster moves its hand. Sora quickly dodges the attack. He thinks that after the man's fusion, the big monster's attack power increased, but he notices the power on the ground, saying that this guy is very persistent. Sora then questions it, because this guy looked like him. That man materializes a black sword. Sora thinks it's such a powerful energy surge. That sword was bad news, as the man says he will take the life of the Seed of the Abyss. This was his destiny, and Sora dodges the sword. He then moves his fist and hits the man's arm. The sword switches hands to Sora, who then moves in for an attack. The man glares at him angrily, but Sora's attack only hits the ground. He wonders if that was nullified too, and why he was getting the feeling of that energy surge, that it was almost the same as the power of the abyss. The man returns to the monster's shoulder, asking if stealing someone's weapon is all he can do. Then, he moves his palm. Sora thinks he vanished and that the power of the abyss has many uses he doesn't know. Thinking this fight will drag on, and first of all, he needs to get this soldier to safety. He asks if he's afraid of heights, and Shoki says no. He's then surprised as the car starts to move. Sora says they're going to fly now. The man calls him an idiot and tells him not to underestimate the power of the abyss, creating a sphere while saying the strong don't exist to protect the weak. They exist to become even stronger. He must lose his life along with this weak human. Sora thinks it's too fast. Even if he runs, it will catch up, and in that case, he'll just crush it, leaping toward the sphere. Sora then moves his fist, hitting the sphere and wondering if it worked, but he notices there was no impact and that it was the real body until he hears a scream behind him. That abyss power then hits the car. Sora tells him to get out of the car, now. Shoki says not to get close, but the energy tells the pitiful lamb not to be afraid. The protagonist then looks down. Those spikes pierce the car, saying it will take him home. Sora steps on the spike, saying, "This is bullshit." The man gets on the car, telling him not to get worked up. Sora grabs a part of the spikes. The abyss energy says he hasn't lost his life yet, and was even going for him, using necromancy on the body. The man says watching everyone you care about lose their lives in front of you is the beautiful destiny of the Seed of the Abyss. Sora just looks at him coldly, asking if he also takes pleasure in trampling on people's dignity. The man laughs while controlling the energy, saying there's no need to state the obvious, then uses the obsidian storm. The blows hit Sora's body and clothes. He questions if that's all there is. That energy then explodes on him. Sora readies his fist, saying that scum like him disgust him. He moves, breaking the spikes in his path with a punch. Sora charges forward once more, grabbing Shoki's body right after, but the soldier had a dark look on his face, attacking Sora with consecutive blows, while he just thinks about apologizing for getting him involved in this. The man stops behind Sora. Then the protagonist lunges at him with a ready strike. The man says it's useless. He's a novice who doesn't even know how to use the abyss power and can't even dream of defeating him until he's hit by a punch. Sora throws the man far away, making him hit the ground, then says he's no match. The giant creature moves in front of him, with the man saying it's impossible. He had actually hurt him. Sora says that people grow, and charges forward again. The man replies that this is bad, then climbs onto the giant monster's shoulder, saying that just by watching his movements, he learned to control the power of the abyss, and wants to know where he went. But Sora appears behind him with his fist ready. That man leaps away, saying he's stronger than he thought. Sora says he can escape him, but let's see if he can escape this, destroying his monster. That monster is split in half by the attack. Sora notices it rejoining, and thinks it's that technique again, so he'll aim for the real body's core, grabbing a sphere of black energy. He pulls it upwards, telling it to be crushed now. The monster says there's no way that happened. Then the sun begins to light up the area, burning away the abyss energy, and thus turning the monsters to pieces. Sora turns to the man, saying he's next. That man prepares a sphere of power, saying he'll remember this, activating his shadow unit. Several monsters approach with bloodlust, heading towards the sphere. That blood energy goes to the man. Sora defends himself with his arms, and his clothes are torn. He is then surprised, seeing that the man had fled. He then wonders if he used a technique like that just to escape, complaining that his clothes were destroyed. But it's a good thing the photo of his father and mother was intact. He opens the car door, saying this guy probably has a family waiting for him too, taking the necklace he was wearing. Then he buries Shoki in the ground. Sora says he'll take it with him. There's no way that guy was the end of the shadows. He absorbed too many, so he could attack at any moment. The protagonist remembers him saying he would watch everyone he cares about lose their lives in front of him. It was his beautiful destiny, as Sora reflects that he can't let him reach the evacuation shelter first, leaping right after, because he has to get there as fast as possible. He moves away from Area X. Other drones advance there. May tells the squads to check the area carefully, make sure not even a rat gets through, and remain on high alert. Other soldiers climb the mountains. One of them calls the director and says the monsters have already been defeated. May says she knows that, looking at the area with concern. While reflecting that they had already been destroyed, May orders them to check the drone data and report any and all information, reflecting that there are clear signs of battle, and the strong hunter Lieutenant Kagura mentioned had survived the bombing and wiped out the wave of monsters. Until someone calls for the director, saying that this drone's memory card was still in good condition and they will view the information now. May says she'll take a look, reflecting that Private First Class Matsura went to the bombing zone and the person next to him must be the strong hunter. Those soldiers approach the body. One of them looks at the items on the ground, noticing a special energy potion, an ancient A-rank royal dagger, and an unidentified golden cube. Another soldier asks what he found. That soldier clumsily hides his items and says it's nothing, but his superior tells him not to lie, climbing down right after, and asks if this dropped from the boss, as they look like rare items. Taking items obtained by the unit for oneself is a crime, and he knows what he has to do. The young man looks at the items in his hand, asking how they were going to split it. His superior tells him to relax because the only thing he wants is the cube. That soldier says no, because it's certain there's a legendary item in a box like this. However, his superior touches his shoulder, telling him not to get the wrong idea, as he has no choice. He's left with the cube as the young man walks away. He thinks he's finally obtained a golden relic. At Evacuation Shelter 6, Sora says he's finally arrived. Looking up at the walls, he reflects that they haven't been attacked yet. Some people look back, noticing Sora walking around shirtless. He reflects that he doesn't feel his presence nearby, and in fact, he doesn't sense any strong presence. But if no one strong protects this place, it'll be destroyed sooner or later, until a monk stops in front of him. Sora wonders if he's blind. The monk says he has a strong aura, and that the boy must be from the outside. Sora confirms all of this. The monk laughs, saying it's a relief. He has no ill intentions, and just wants to buy information about the outside world. Having the information he desires would mean a great deal to him. Sora wonders if that's the currency used there, and says that if it's something he knows, he'll answer. The monk agrees, but the protagonist says that before that, he'd like to ask something, because a monk calling him Your Excellency must be an act. The monk says he saw right through him, and that this outfit is just a hobby. Sora asks if hiding his eyes is a hobby too. The monk thinks he's a troublesome guy, saying that he recently contracted an eye disease. Sora thinks to himself that even with the monk's eyes covered, he can feel a terrifying light coming from them. He must have his reasons for hiding his power. It seems a wolf in sheep's clothing is hiding in the shelter, so he asks what the monk would like to know, and the monk says it's finally his turn to ask. He'd like to know what's happening outside. After all, they've gathered armed soldiers on the walls and must be gearing up for battle. He's sure the general public hasn't noticed, but he heard explosions outside, so he wants to know what was going on. Sora says he's not sure, as he was on a task when he heard an explosion from the southwest and got scared. The monk thinks he's also hiding his power, but he thanks him, saying he helped a lot, and Sora replies that it was nothing. Sora wonders if the monk is out here alone, following such vague leads. He wants to know how many fighters of this caliber are around, and he can't cause a scene either. Besides, they're letting someone as suspicious as him walk around freely. Maybe humanity's guard is down because they're facing the same enemy. Sora goes to a clothing store, thinking he bought some new clothes with the money the monk gave him. Now it was time to look for his parents. He's going to start the old-fashioned way, calling out to a young woman nearby, asking if she recognizes the couple in this photo, but the woman gets scared right away, saying she doesn't know them as she backs away. Sora thinks she reacted as if she'd seen a ghost, and he wonders if everyone here is on edge, until he sees a delinquent, who calls out to the protagonist right after. Sora asks what he wants, letting his aura flare. The delinquent says he doesn't look like he's from around here, and he's going around bothering people with a photo in the middle of the night. Sora asks if he knows these two, and the delinquent says he was bothering everyone, but he wants to know why he has a picture of them, and what he wanted with them. Sora replies that he's their son. The delinquent asks if he was the boy with black hair, backing away and asking if he's kidding, but a truck suddenly loses control, heading right for Sora's back. However, the truck is crushed against him. The delinquent is shocked by this. Sora apologizes and asks if the delinquent can repeat himself, not even feeling the impact. The delinquent is terrified by this display, saying that it was him and it's been a long time, but he just has to go down the street to find their house. Sora thanks him and says goodbye, while the delinquent tells him to take care, waving non-stop at the protagonist. But then he runs off, thinking this is bad and he needs to get everyone together. Sora notes that a thug knows where his parents live. Thinking about it, his father was kind to everyone he met, his mother too, and people always take advantage of good people like them. But it's okay, because he's here now. Arriving at the street, he comments that this must be the place. Seeing a huge mansion in front of him, he wonders if they live there, but he thinks that with so many deceased, there must be many empty houses. He knocks on the door and hears his father's voice ask, "Is the work for today done?" Then he opens the door, welcoming him in. Sora is then surprised, seeing his father with the appearance of a Yakuza who doesn't recognize him. Sora says it's him, his son, and repeats his name. His father is completely confused by this. They both sit down at a table. His mother enters the room, apologizing for the delay. She asks if they've talked. The father says yes, but he can't believe it, since he's a completely different person from the Sora they knew. In moments like these, they need that. Sora asks what that is. His father says it's an exchange of secrets between father and son. He adds that he doesn't want to expose this to his wife. But if Sora doesn't give the answers, he won't get out unscathed. If he says anything suspicious, the assassin will take care of him. Then, someone in the ceiling says they understand. Sora reflects that his father has a henchman and is still cautious, but with security this tight, he can relax. So his father asks if he accepts. Sora thinks the henchman should be careful, because he's about to hear things he shouldn't. Saying that every weekend, his father had cooking classes with the housewives support group. His father wonders how he knows that. The henchman reflects on this, picturing his boss. Sora adds that he also had secret ballet lessons every week. The henchman then imagines this scene. The father is surprised and looks at the henchman. He gets scared. Then the energy in the room grows heavier. The father says that may be true, but you don't have to be his son to know that. Sora asks, "How about I say something about your family?" The father wants to know if he really knows something like that. Sora confirms and tells him not to say he wasn't warned. His father tells him to go ahead, completely apprehensive. Then the protagonist says that the Japanese sword was just a replica. The henchman reflects on this information. His father tells him not to be ridiculous and asks if he has any proof. Sora replies that the hilt has his brother's bite marks on it. The henchman wonders if those weren't from when the family head was tied up, then bit the blade and defeated 38 people. Sora draws the blade from its sheath. The henchman thinks he talks a lot, but is sure his real goal is to catch the boss off guard and attack. Sora presses the tip of the blade against his hand. Saying that, it also retracts. His father calls him an idiot, hugging him and saying he thought he had lost his life. It really was his Sora who was home, and if he only knew what they'd been through. They searched everywhere for information about him, and before he knew it, he ended up becoming the boss. Sora says that now the boss is in tears and asks if he can tell the person upstairs to come down. His henchman reflects on the head of the family, who has lived his whole life surrounded by blood. He's never seen anything like this before. Moreover, seeing someone who values honor above all else in this state, he thinks he needs to get out of there and beg for his life, until Sora grabs his foot, asking him to wait, because his father said he wants to talk. A few minutes later, the four of them are sitting at the table. His father says that of all the guards, Ochiai was the biggest gossip. Sora replies that if this gets out, it will have been all his fault. Ochiai promises he won't say a single word, thinking that there's no doubt. They really are father and son, but the mother tells them not to threaten him. Ochiai turns to the madam, moved. However, she says he better not say a single word. Ochiai lowers his head in agreement. The father says he was so happy Sora didn't mention farting or snoring in his sleep, but the mother points out that he just brought it up himself. Sora thinks it's like he's just stepped out of the abyss all over again. He was home now, until the door opens. That delinquent from before calls out to his boss. "There's a white-haired kid looking for you," he says. He falls silent when he notices the protagonist there. Sora asks if he's talking about him. The delinquent suddenly gets nervous. Startled, he says, "So it was you." He adds, "You may be strong, but there are a lot of us here." He asks if Sora is planning to do something to his boss, and if he's from the tiger's roar, but Sora just grabs his legs, staring at him coldly. Then he asks why his father doesn't introduce him to his men. His father says this is his son who disappeared 5 years ago but has finally returned. His level is, but he quickly realizes he doesn't know his level. Sora says he doesn't have the system, and everyone is surprised. They ask how he survived in the Fallen Zones for 5 years without a system. One delinquent says that if he doesn't have a system, then no matter how much he trains, he can't get past level 10. Another delinquent asks what the hell this is, since he kept saying he was strong but was just a beginner without a system. The one with his hair tied up says he must have been mistaken about it, but if he's a beginner, he wants to know how that earlier impact didn't even scratch him. The protagonist looks down coldly, asking if he wants to try and see his level with the system. The delinquent is confused by this, saying that since Sora doesn't have the system, he doesn't know the basics. If you have the system, you can see monsters' levels, but you can't see others' levels without the inspection skill. His father says it's rare and few hunters have it, but the delinquent adds that the boss does. Sora asks his father to take a look, reflecting that he wanted to get some information about the abyss. Everyone gathers around the father as he prepares. Sora asks if his mother isn't going to check. She replies that more than that, she wants to stay by his side and already knows anyway. Everyone is surprised when they see Sora through the system. His father says that no matter how many times he tries, he gets the same result. He can't see any information. There could be two reasons for this. Either it's happening because Sora doesn't have a system, or his level is too high to see. But even without the system, he can still see his name. Besides, Sora survived for 5 years alone, so he'd be dead if he were a beginner. So his level is beyond his perception, and he wants to know what his son has been doing for the last 5 years. His mother says that either way, they should be happy. Sora was a strong boy. He must have gone through a lot to get back home. The protagonist calls out to his mother, almost in tears, remembering everything he went through in the abyss. Then he starts to cry. He says that everything is okay because he's back. So please, Mom, don't you cry either. The father watches this, almost crying himself. Then he gathers his men to leave. He tells them to go, because a mother and son have finally been reunited. Then he closes the door, asking where Jiro and the others are, since it's been 2 hours and they haven't returned yet. Sora is left alone with his mother and asks about his brother, asking her not to say something happened to him. His mother replies that he's fine, but doesn't visit much because he's in the army. Since he's back now, she asks if he wants her to call him, as he's been fighting on the front lines all this time as if to avenge him. Sora says it's been a long time since he's seen him, but he wants to know if his mother has a high position here. She replies that she has status, but the reason they trust her is because she's a cleric, a healer who can heal, provide support, and even see prophecies. Sora says that since that's the case, he wants to know if she can see what's going on with him, but his mother says no, since she can't see skills. Clerics have the ability of prophecy. She knew he would come back one day anyway. On the other side of the house, a noise is heard. A subordinate opens the door, asking who's there. He comes face to face with the vice chief of the organization. The chief welcomes Jiro Iwashima, the vice president of the United Guilds, but he asks, "What's with that look on your face?" He also asks if something happened, since he'd asked someone to keep an eye on things. Jiro says that just as he suspected, the tiger's roar is connected to the army. They delivered the monster carcass. But as usual, some guy with a notebook was hassling them and started making excuses. After the inspection, they ended up running into the tiger's roar guys. The father says, so that's what happened. He reflects that if the tiger's roar, which is supposed to be neutral, is doing something like this, something big must be going on. He says they can't just stand by. For now, everything is fine, and they can eat and rest for a bit. He summons a sword and says he's going to the tiger's roar later to find out what happened. He's going to show them what the United Guilds are capable of. Sora had heard everything, and remembers the name. He thinks that he managed to improve all his skills, not just his strength. His senses became sharper, and he can even hear distant noises. He wonders if his father will try to negotiate with them, as he's a little worried. Opening the door as they pass in the hallway, he announces that he's going with his father. The delinquent wonders if he's going to get involved in this mess, thinking it might be a chance to see his true power. Jiro is confused by this, wanting to know who he is. The chief replies that it's his son, Sora, who disappeared 5 years ago. Jiro asks what his level is. His father calls out to his son, explaining that he can't read his system. Jiro sums it up. He's a normal person. He reflects that without the system, you're as good as dead and wouldn't last more than 3 days. It wouldn't be possible even with elite or survival skills, and without skills, you just become a burden to others. Jiro says that's great, but he just got back, so he should rest and leave this to them. His father agrees and says he can stay home with his mother. The mother says that's a good idea since she's barely shown him the house yet. Sora reflects that they think he's useless in battle, which is to be expected since they see him as a normal guy. And come to think of it, he still hasn't seen how this shelter really works. If there's a monster like he imagines, he needs to hide his powers so he doesn't drag his parents into it. Sora says that's fine then. The delinquent reflects that he can't miss a chance like this. Then the chief leads them on the mission. The protagonist just watches them leave from a distance. His mother says everything will be all right and he doesn't need to worry. It's been a while since their family has been together, and they don't want him in danger again. But she's serious. His father is very strong. Besides, she always uses her vision and says he'll come back safely. Sora says that's enough affection. He's not a kid anymore. He reflects that it's true his mother uses her vision to see the future, but they were talking about the guild connected to the army, which means his father is going to fight them. So he wants to know the current situation at the shelter and why the tiger's roar has a problem with them. His mother says that ever since Judgment Day, the guild was founded by the Awakened. His father started uniting the guilds and cooperating with the army in hopes of finding Sora. The union has been growing every day because everyone was touched by his story. Since then, The United Guilds have taken care of everything, gathering supplies and defeating monsters while the army handles the tower. Besides, his father is a kind man. That's how they've kept the peace for the last 4 years. But even a few months ago, Tiger's Roar, a large guild from the 4th Shelter, started showing up there. Since then, the conflict between them has never been resolved. Sora asks if the army is doing anything. His mom says their enemies keep getting stronger, and the army can't do anything about it. But Tiger's Roar is one of the strongest guilds. Any information about the tower was very valuable. Besides, they have a Woken chosen by a tower deity in their guild, and Ezra was like an ace up their sleeve. Sora asks about a tower deity. His mom explains they are the gods of the tower, and their power is literally equivalent to a god's for humans. If you pass the deity's challenge, you can become an Ezra. They're considered messengers of God outside the tower, and they also become its guardians. The largest number of Ezras are in Tiger's Roar, and the guild has practically taken over every area. The people there love their guild. Even though they haven't cleared a tower, they're the only ones suffering without an Ezra. Sora says the situation seems really bad, but if people love the United Guilds, he wonders why they're acting like the Yakuza. His mom says it was just a personal preference. Sora is startled by this, but she just laughs, saying it doesn't matter since everyone is happy and full of energy. He was tired and should go take a shower. She tells him to call her if he wants his back washed, but Sora refuses, saying he can do it himself. His mom says he's really grown up, leaving the protagonist alone. He concentrates his abyss energy, thinking that his mother has left. He didn't think the situation was so serious. Still, he can't stop worrying, so he opens the window. Then he leaps away. His mom watches this from another room. She mutters that she told him to rest, but as always, kids are stubborn. Sora's father, Sakuya, was heading to the Tiger's Roar Guild with members of the Union Guild. Meanwhile, the protagonist reflects that everything beyond the center was dark. This was good because it made it easier to find them. He could see where they were. But suddenly Sora wonders why he feels dizzy. Ever since he was strengthened by the Abyss fragments, he's never even had a cold. Then a voice calls out to the Seed of the Abyss and says it won't let him escape. The protagonist recognizes the voice of that guy. He wonders if the man is hiding his presence since he can't sense anything. So he really was in Shelter 6. He complains about the dizziness again. The voice repeats the same thing, saying it was because his soul had already been marked. Sora tries to strike him. He questions if it's an illusion as his hand passes right through the man. He wonders if it's a soul mark. The man just repeats the same phrase. Several lights illuminate the protagonist, asking what he's doing there at this time of night. Sora thinks he must have shouted and they noticed him. He leaps away from there, thinking the illusion had disappeared. He lands on the ground. The soul mark appears again, saying it won't let the Seed of the Abyss escape. He wonders if it disappeared because of the light. He decides to test it now, standing under a lamppost. Sora thinks he understands. If he stays in the dark for 7 seconds, the soul mark activates and he gets dizzy. If he loses his composure, the dialogue changes. He then imitates the man's voice. A woman thinks he's crazy, and Sora reflects that only he can see the man's face. Walking, he thinks that on the path of light, there's a piercing noise in his head. After a while, the mark disappears, and he stops seeing him. He hadn't seen it before because of the sunlight and the lights at home. So that must be it. As the soul mark appears again, Sora reflects that the man might be able to find his location. He could launch a surprise attack at any moment, so he can't let his guard down. But first, he has to find his father. He tells the man to shut up, while a woman gives him a strange look. Sora walks on without saying a word. A car passes in front of him, its headlights on. He confirms that it doesn't appear in the light. If it's like his mom said, the United Guilds are no longer useful to the army, so his father might be in danger. He doesn't know how many strong people are in the shelter, but there's no way the army would ally with the Tiger's Roar Guild just to stand by. There's a high chance they'll try to destroy the United Guilds. In that case, he will protect his mother and father, even if it means taking everyone's life. He stops in his tracks, wondering if they can really go back to those peaceful days. Then, a crowd gathers in front of him. Sora says it looks like he's arrived at the right place. He wants to know how his father is going to handle the discussion. He remembers him saying that in a conflict, violence should be the last resort. A young Sora says he understands. He wonders if his father will wait until the last moment now. Then, Sora notices something. The executives tell everyone to get out of the way because it's starting. It's been a while since the chief drew his sword. The last time he left a scar almost 20 meters long on his opponent. Sakuya prepares his energy, telling Tsuchita to get out of there. He moves to face him, making an immense cut in the building. Everything in its path is destroyed. Sakuya continues to smile. The other guild members cheer at the sight. Sora is just stunned. Sakuya sheathes his katana, securing it. Sora taps an executive on the shoulder, asking if the chief has always been like this. He says the chief is known for getting into fights quickly. The subordinate asks if he didn't know, as his chief is famous for his quick temper. Sora questions if he doesn't say violence is the last resort. The executive comments that he said that at the beginning, believing the military would fix everything. A lot has happened since then. For the thousands of people here, as long as the hunters are doing their jobs and the civilians aren't hungry, they don't care about a few fights. That's why solving things head-on was the fastest way. If you can't win a fight, there's no reason to start one. Basically, hit them first and talk later. Sora thinks that from what he saw of the monk, the strong usually avoid trouble. He was mistaken. Or maybe this means he can do whatever he wants if he has as much power as his father. Or perhaps that guy is just blindfolded on a whim. Elsewhere, the monk watches from a rooftop. He observes the scene of the battle. It was Shuzenji Yukio, a level 75 Arhat. The sage's gaze ability was active. Yukio reflects that a level 90 monster was defeated like that, with no wounds from heavy weapons. It was more like it had been torn apart by brute force. As expected, there are still many scary people out there. That's why they must always act with modesty, blindfolding themselves and becoming a level 45 monk. The building was completely destroyed. Then, a voice calls out to Sakuya, screaming that he's a bastard for thinking they're still in the period when the shelter centers were first built. Sakuya says that now that he mentions it, things have changed. But there are still annoying people like him. He should have taken his life back then. The man says to just do it now, or maybe he's too scared. Sakuya replies that he can't just let that comment slide. He draws his sword once more. The man trembles with fear. He thinks he's provoked him enough and it's time for him to show up. Or maybe it wasn't enough. He shouts that Sakuya is a mere coward who can't even use his own sword. They all need to become food for Tiger's roar. Sakuya charges forward, calling him trash. But his katana just hits a shield. The man thinks that it worked. A voice yells for them to stop right there. They were starting a fight in a shelter and really have some nerve. It was Usui Osamu, level 63. The executives scream that the bastard has allied himself with the Tiger's roar and demand to know why he's there. Sora realizes this is the soldier backed by the guild. He doesn't think it's a coincidence. It seems there are several people from inside this place. That guy being here right now is no coincidence. Both of them approach Sakuya. He realizes the military was supporting the Tiger's roar all along. Osamu states that Article 15 prohibits fighting within the shelter's vicinity. The aggressor must be punished based on the consequences, with a minimum sentence of 15 days in prison. Or, depending on the case, public execution. He then asks if Sakuya will follow his orders. He realizes this was their plan all along, to provoke him. The moment he attacked, they would have a reason to arrest him. They weren't the least bit worried about their corrupt alliance being exposed. All that matters is pinning the blame on him. If he agrees to be arrested now, they'll extend his sentence indefinitely and kill him, making it look like an accident. If they lose him, the guild will be crushed by the Tiger's roar. That said, he wonders why someone from the army would go so far to disrupt the balance here. He doesn't know their objective, but he won't go along with this. Not a chance. He says the officer has it all wrong. They weren't fighting. As the guild leader, he cannot accept being arrested for a crime without proof. Osamu says the gash from the sword cut is proof enough. Sakuya asks if he's kidding. That's not proof of a duel. It's just from an attempt to renovate the building. Osamu says he still doesn't seem to get it. He's the one who decides these things. And if he says it's a duel attempt, then that's what it is. That's why the moment he stepped in here, he had already lost. So he should obediently accept his arrest. The delinquent calls out to his boss, saying they won't lose. If the other guy wants a fight, they'll take it. But Sakuya tells him to calm down. They're also in range, so they'll shoot. He sees the level 63. Sakuya notes he has the speed of an assassin. It'll be hard to stop someone like that. As long as they use Ueda as a hostage, they can get out of this situation. He then draws his sword, and the two think, here he comes. Ueda uses his sword shield ability, thinking he won't let himself become the weak point. The defensive skills of an executor are different from other classes. They allow the user to analyze enemy attacks with precision. At this distance, he should be able to defend. His family can only defend against swords, but that's precisely why he can exert more power when fighting against one. With this, he can even block a strike from a level 69 warrior. A level 65. Samurai's attack is nothing against it. This shield won't break for someone like Sakuya. He then shouts for him to give up. Osamu asks if he'd rather behave, or be tied up and thrown in a cell with his companions. He then asks what he will do. Jiro then calls out to his boss. Sakuya grinds his teeth, unsure of what to do, but then he sheathes his sword, moving it in front of him. Everyone is surprised and calls out to their boss. Osamu says he probably chose the wiser option. The others say they're underestimating their boss, and that earlier attack was just a bluff. Jiro realizes the signal was to prepare for a counterattack as soon as he brandished the sword. They don't know that the two of them have the same technique. Sakuya lets go of his sword. Ueda thinks it had disappeared, but Sakuya charges forward without the sword. The protector thinks it's no problem. as the shield was enchanted to protect against sword attacks. Sakuya suddenly draws the sword. Wada wonders if he really thinks a shield that can withstand a level 70 player can be broken so easily. However, Jiro starts using his power, moving the stones on the ground. They gather at the tip of the sword, forming a hammer. The blow shatters the shield easily. Wada realizes it was a crushing attack. Sakuya lunges at him once more. Osamu says he knows what they're planning. He rushes forward, saying that trying to attack him is the same as choosing to die. Jiro then tells him to stop, creating several stone spikes on the ground. Osamu notices it immediately. He says the kid's got guts to throw him like that, and that they should just kill him already. The soldiers start shooting at them. Jiro raises his fingers and activates his power, opening a barrier that protects Sakuya and Wada. Sakuya thinks this is great. As long as they neutralize his movements, they can get out of there, but he can't get close to Wada because he vanishes right after. Sakuya turns around. Osamu says that his subordinate's stone prison had locked him in the middle of the shadows, and the magical energy on Wada's shield had a location marker. All of this fulfilled the necessary conditions to activate the assassin's skill, Shadow Trance. With that, they've lost their potential hostage. Their defeat is certain. He orders his subordinates to get rid of them. Sakuya is shocked. So is Jiro. Even the soldiers call out to their commander. Osamu asks what's wrong and why they're so surprised, with a hand on his shoulder. Sora releases his energy, saying he wants to know why they're surprised too. Osamu wonders who this guy is. Is he here to help Mukashima? He managed to get behind an assassin. He may not know who he is, but he's sure he's an enemy. The one who strikes first wins. He holds a potion behind his back. Wada thinks it's the poison the tiger's roar prepared to defeat the level 90 boss. Then Osamu yells for him to get away. He then throws the 3 daggers. Sakuya screams his son's name. Wada realizes that the poison will affect them too. The soldiers notice the purple mist, so they decide to flee because of the poison. Wada thinks that he doesn't agree with this plan, but at least Mukashima's ally must be dead too. However, Sora just moves his hand. The poison mist begins to dissipate. Wada wonders how he's still moving after being hit by a poison made to stop a level 90 boss. Osamu thinks it can't be. Sora has stopped the daggers with his mouth and is holding both of them by their shirts. The young man sighs. He drops the 3 daggers to the ground. Then he asks where they think they're going. Ueda grinds his teeth at this. Regardless of their class, every player has 5 attributes: perception, intelligence, strength, agility, and constitution. If he can withstand that poison, then his constitution is comparable to a level 100 player. Sora tells him to have his men lower their weapons. Osamu looks back angrily. He grabs his arm with his shadow empowerment. Osamu lifts his feet off the ground. He gets Sora in a headlock while telling him to shut up. Wada thinks this is his chance. While he's busy getting out of the headlock, Wada uses his power, but Sora just dodges easily. Then he throws both of them far away. Sakuya just sees the 2 of them fly past him. They both crash into the stone wall behind them. Sakuya covers his face from the dust. He sees the 2 of them defeated. Osamu uses his shadow powers. Sora then looks back. The man says that even if he's strong, he doubts he can resist his shadow trance. He tries to stab the protagonist from behind, but the dagger just stops. Osamu realizes his body is as hard as iron. He can't pull his knife out. Sora then moves his fist. He pulls the dagger from his back as Osamu retreats. The assassin realizes he was hurt just by the force of the wind. He needs to fall back, but Sora is already in front of him. He slams his face into the ground. Osamu thinks he's too fast. The protagonist then gets up. Jiro is dumbfounded by this. Sora walks over to his father, holding Osamu's body in one hand. The soldiers look at each other, terrified. The protagonist says he'll leave the others to them and is going home. Sakuya simply agrees with his son. At the Mukujima's home, his mother asks if it's over, and Sakuya confirms. Jiro asks if they admitted to anything, but Sakuya says no, since they all stayed silent. It doesn't matter. At least they know the Tiger's Roar Guild's position. They'll have to stay on alert for a few days. Putting their plan aside, he wants to know what his son has been doing for the past 5 years. Sora says that after seeing their conflict, he realized what he had done. He fell into a strange realm 5 years ago and spent all that time defeating monsters. It must have been one of the towers he was trapped inside. Then Sora told them everything that happened in the abyss, explaining that in the end, a summoner brought him back. Sakuya says there are a total of 16 towers, but none match his story. Sora replies that it must have been an unmapped one. Jiro says that if this tower is near Shelter 6, they can prioritize clearing it. Sakuya comments that he was happy to see his son was alive. Jiro laughs, saying he came back billions of times stronger than all of them. His mother replies that it doesn't matter what happened, as long as he's home. His father says their family will never be split apart again. Sora notices his father has as many scars as he does, but he'll never abandon them again. Suddenly, the light in the room goes out. Sora starts to feel dizzy. Sakuya asks if it's a blackout, and Jiro says the forecast called for heavy rain and thunderstorms tonight. Sora thinks this is bad. That man's voice says he definitely won't let him get away this time. He thinks he has the audacity to show up again. That said, he seems to be saying something different this time. The problem is, not even his mother and father, who can use powers, are able to see him. Suddenly, the curse dissipates. He wonders if it disappeared, but then notices it only separated from his body. The man says it's been a while. Sora thinks it's gained consciousness. However, it doesn't seem to have materialized yet. It's probably just a hallucination he can deal with later. The man approaches and asks if he's really going to pretend he can't hear him. "And do you really think I'm still just a hallucination?" he asks, trapping Sora's eyes. Then, his vision goes black. Sora thinks, "My field of vision is gone, so it wasn't a hallucination." Everyone in the room notices. His mother calls out his name. Sakuya asks what happened to his eyes. His mother tries to use purification, but the system says the user was not under a curse. Sora thinks he actually materialized. This is bad. My father and the others are in danger. He slams the man against the wall. His parents can see him moving the darkness. The man asks what that was for, and if he's scared. Sakuya asks if the enemy is there, as he can't see anything unusual. His mother says she can't see anything either. Sora asks why this bastard is after him, but the man says he's misunderstood. Speaking of which, he introduces himself. "I am one of the nobles of the divine winged race, the god of darkness, Fodel, and you, from the depths of the abyss, absorbed the divine power my race cast away there. To be precise, the power of darkness. You managed to escape the abyss on your own, and that's drawn the attention of the divine agents. They're gathering right now, so if you don't want to lose your life, you'd better go back to the tower." Sora thinks about the divine agents. It's probably related to what his mother said about the Ezra. Sakuya says he doesn't understand anything, but the situation seems dangerous. His mother tells him to wait, as they need to watch their son. Sora says he can take on even gods. "Even if you gather countless of them, what do you think you can possibly do?" Fodel tells him not to get cocky just because he got lucky and defeated him once. "Ever since the twilight of the gods, the divine power of the winged has vanished. Your power is nothing compared to what they once had." Sora asks why he should believe him. Fodel bursts into laughter. "Don't believe me if you don't want to, but you'll regret it when the blood rain begins." Sora falls silent. He thinks he has no reason to believe this guy, but for some reason, he feels Fodel is right. A sudden noise interrupts them. Divine energy floods the room. At this, Fodel starts screaming in pain. Sora realizes his vision has returned, but Fodel is writhing in agony. A voice says, "I believe him." Sakuya recognizes the voice and calls out his name. Sora realizes that's the monk from the city entrance. He then asks if they know him. Sakuya says he's not just an acquaintance. He's the man who co-founded the guild with him. Fodel screams for the damn monk to let him go, and Sora asks if the monk can see him. Yukio says that given the emergency, they need to talk. Sakuya demands to know what the hell is going on. The monk says he'll explain depending on how his conversation with Sora goes. A little while later that night, Sora begins to ask about the emergency situation, but Yukio interrupts. "I'm not an Ezra, but I can see divine power with my enlightened vision. That's how I was able to seal this god using a forbidden technique. Besides, although your power shares the same nature as his, its intensity is far greater. I don't know how that happened, and I don't have time to investigate. Many beings with strong divine powers are gathering in the city. They are all targeting your power. I don't know what his deal is, but what he said is true. However, you must not return to the abyss. That tower holds something far more dangerous. He was trying to trick you into returning to the abyss to regain his power. What you should do right now is leave this place and enlist in the army." Sora asks, "Aren't they the ones who tried to kill me with a bomb?" Yukio admits the army is like that now, but there's someone I trust on the inside. As long as you have a connection with them, they won't touch you. Sora argues that even so, there's no guarantee they won't target his family, but the monk tells him to relax because the Ezra don't attack normal people. "Besides, I'm here. I definitely won't let them lay a finger on your family. After all, Arhats are beings who can rival the Ezra. At the Tiger's Roar Guild, Hiro Ryusei, the Ezra of Ares, says it's a ridiculous mission, using 4 of them for someone who doesn't even have a system. Jiraiya Yukinoju, the Ezra of Hades, says that according to their intel, Sakuya's son, who was missing for years, has entered the tower. Someone that pathetic is a guy Hiro could handle by himself." Hiro asks, "What did you say?" But a hand touches his shoulder. Dugami Rimu, the Ezra of Athena, stops their fight. Mukai Licht says he'll be participating in this mission as well. Iwagaya Kaichi, the Ezra of Hermes, asks, "The chief too?" Mukai replies that it's a direct order from Zeus. The brat named Sora must die. Furthermore, the 16th tower is near Shelter 6. The Alliance remains stubborn and has refused our proposal. So, we'll act alone. That's why this time, we're not just getting rid of Sora, but also his parents, the leaders of the Alliance, he says, revealing himself as the Ezra of Zeus. Back at the Alliance Guild, Yukio says, "That's everything. Now you need to go meet Mei at the central base. Since she's an acquaintance of mine, I'm sure she'll take good care of you. Also, you should check the Curse Circle. If war breaks out, not even the Tiger's Roar Guild will be able to do anything." Yoi says the Alliance established its base here for a reason, and that Sora can rest easy. Sora simply agrees. About 15 minutes later, the monk is waiting by the door. Suddenly, the leaves begin to rustle strangely. Yukio thinks they're here. Dark energies begin to flood the area. But Yukio activates his golden bell curtain. The energy immediately rebounds. Everyone inside defends against the blast. But the 4 Ezras were already at the door. Yukio notices their numbers, along with Mukai, who approaches from behind. The others make way for him. Then they call out for their boss. Yukio thinks that even Mukai showed up and wonders what's going on. Mukai calls for Yukinoju, and he understands the order. Gathering his energy into his fingers, the energy begins to circle the entire house. Sakuya asks what that is. Yukio realizes this is bad. That demonic spirit has located the position of every member of the Alliance, even the Stealth Operations Battalion. It's impossible to escape. Sakuya uses the Eye of Searching to check everyone's level. Along with his subordinates, he then says the level difference is too high. Yukio says they probably have a reason for visiting so late, but Yukinoju just replies that according to the spirit, Sora isn't here. Mukai wants to know where he is, and Yukio asks what he's talking about, since he can't help without any context. Hiro gets angry and asks what that bald monk just said. Yukio says he seems to lack manners, then removes his blindfold. Hiro says if he's so eager to die, he'll grant that wish. Inside the house, Yoi uses her barrier opening. Suddenly, the energy infects all the Ezras, inflicting the weakness curse effect. Hiro calls them idiots and prepares to fight. He asks if they really think a curse from a level 68 will change anything. Even with these effects, he's strong enough to defeat the Union. However, Yukio simply catches his fist. Hiro is completely stunned by this. Yukio says that he clearly doesn't know much about the Union, as Hiro's level drops to 71. He questions this, having lost more than 30 levels at once. Yukio comments that once his level is down, he's nothing. Then he strikes his guard, throwing him as far as he can. The level of all the other Ezras had dropped in the same way. Sakuya explains that those caught in the curse have their levels reduced by 50% of the caster's level. This means they lost 34 levels. Mukai bursts into laughter at this, saying this was becoming more interesting. Then he calls for Rimu, who was behind him. The girl begins to use her divine power. Mukai says that as long as he has them in the palm of his hand, he's sure Sora will return. The others are also taken somewhere else. Yukio holds onto his hat. The system announces, "Welcome to the Colosseum of Athena." Yukio says this is bad. Mukai says it's been a while since he fought someone on equal footing, so he's very excited now. It's also a good way to kill time while waiting for Sora. Now, regarding all of them who were in the way, the other subordinates question what he did with the bosses. Mukai summons his spear, announcing he'll take this opportunity to finish them right here and now, in the desolate area X. The protagonist begins to descend from the sky, landing next to Mei shortly after. She quickly notices the young man. Meanwhile, Sora guides himself with a photo, thinking that this person is Mei Tosanaki. He then announces he's from the Alliance and came here to request protection from the military. Mei tells them to lower their weapons, saying that he is apparently Sora Mukishima, and that she has something she'd like to ask. Back at the Battle Coliseum, Sakuya looks around in anger. A staff is driven into the ground. The surrounding torches light up. Rimu calls upon her gods, humbly asking them to witness her fight, and to grant a miracle to guide her to the end of this duel. A goddess of light forms in the center of the arena. Everyone from the Alliance is surprised by this. Rimu says that each side will send 5 warriors, and the one to achieve 3 victories will receive the grace of Olympus, and those who lose the fight will be burned to death by the divine light. Everyone becomes very apprehensive about this. Sakuya questions how there can be 5 warriors on each side if there are only 8 people there in total. Rimu says that's only for now. The main stars of this event are already on their way. Then Hiro asks who wants to go to hell first. The system announces that the Ezra hero Ryusei is issuing a challenge to combat. Sakuya grinds his teeth in anger. Yukio says they ended up in this situation because he was too naive. Sakuya replies that just him being there is enough. He isn't responsible for how things are, and thanks to the curse Yoi cast, they have a chance. Jiro agrees. Since she isn't a combat type, they just need to secure 3 victories. A smile spreads across Yukio's face. He says that the Ezra of Ares is the most violent of them all. Right after ascending as an Ezra, using Ares' overwhelming abilities, He single-handedly defeated an entire guild that included 3 other Ezras, but he knows what to do against him, so they can leave this fight in his hands. The monk steps inside the barrier, coming face to face with Hiro. He then asks if he might be granted the honor of dueling him. Hiro just glares at him angrily. The goddess says that since both are in position, they should begin the duel. Hiro gathers energy in his body, charging at him immediately after while saying that the monk talks too much. However, Yukio just blocks the blow with his arm. Hiro retaliates with another scratch from the back of his hand. The battle begins, with people watching from the outside. Hiro asks if all he knows is how to run from a fight, but the monk catches his fist. Sakuya celebrates this as if it were a victory, but Hiro smiles, emanating a malevolent energy. Yukio realizes the severity of these blows. He then prepares his back palm, repelling Hiro far away. The Ezra crouches to lessen the impact. Yukinoju says that the monk not only attacked first, but also created distance between them right after. He says it's going to be tough, but Rimu tells him to relax. Sakuya asks if Shuzenji is all right, seeing his injured arm. An even wider grin spreads across Hiro's face, asking what he thought of the fangs of Cadmus. Yukio realizes he's referring to Ares' pet snake. To think it would be joined with the Ezra, it must be coordinating the attacks. Hiro readies the fangs, warning that they're just getting started. And then he charges once more, announcing that Cadmus hasn't had his fill yet. Hiro throws another punch at him. Yukio blocks, but the fang bites his arm. He thinks that he's a bastard, because his speed had even increased. However, he prepares for combat, releasing more energy, and uses his golden bell curtain to repel the monster. Hiro is thrown far back. Yukio thinks that it's not the Ezra who got faster, but that he's the one who got slower. His stats reduced by the dragon's venom. Hiro says he's pretty tough. The system explains that the fangs of the dragon's venom allow the user to recover strength and increase their power through blood, but it's not much yet. Sakuya thinks that if they keep fighting like this, the power difference between them will only grow. Hiro charges forward once again, landing a kick on the monk's guard. He asks how it feels as the dragon's venom spreads throughout his body, wondering how long he can last. The monk simply recites a Buddhist mantra. Hiro says that reciting the Nenbutsu now won't help him at all. Rimu asks if it's just her or if he's gathering divine power. Yukinoju says that's strange since he's not an Ezra, wondering where that divine power is coming from then. The monk continues to recite his mantra. Sakuya says it can't be as it's a dangerous technique, but given the situation, he might actually be able to win. He finishes his mantra. A golden energy fills the arena. Buddha materializes and attacks Hiro using a Kamutoke. Hiro comments that he's never heard of a god like this. He wonders if Yukio thinks he can avoid his attacks with something like that. Yukio was just standing in the center of the Buddha. Then he charges toward Hiro with the divine armor. He says this idiot really plans to fight him hand to hand just because he's wearing divine armor. It was brave, but it's the same old trick people use to try and beat him. There were plenty of idiots like this that Hiro had killed in the past. They thought that by condensing divine power, they could avoid the attacks from Cadmus's fangs. For Cadmus, divine power is even better than flesh and blood, so he's going to devour him whole, just like he did with that other fool. He shall be swallowed by this darkness of despair. But the monk lands a punch on him instead. Hiro wonders what that was. He used the divine power to suppress Cadmus's poison, and recovered his speed. Yukio lands a kick to his stomach. Hiro says it wasn't just his speed, but his power and reaction time too. Everything was increasing dramatically as he takes a knee to the chin. Hiro thinks that even so, for Cadmus, this couldn't be better. He's about to become food for his dragon. Yukio questions that. Hiro grabs his arm, saying he's about to receive all of his divine power, and declares victory. The energy begins to flood his body. Hiro wonders what just happened. He couldn't control this divine power. The monk says it's too early to celebrate. He breaks free from the dragon, saying that the power of an Arhat was too heavy to be ingested, as he strikes the Ezra's face. Hiro says it's impossible, and demands to know how Cadmus can't ingest his divine power. Yukio asks, when did I say it was divine power? He's actually quite naive, throwing the Ezra far away. Yoi comments that when he said he wanted to change his class to Arhat, she didn't quite understand why, since becoming an Arhat, he loses any chance of being an Ezra, and all his power is based on the strength of karma. Although very powerful, it's crucial to accumulate good merits daily. Otherwise, he won't be able to maintain control and will be consumed by karma. Yukio says he is someone who doesn't accumulate good merits and only does bad things, yet he thought he could control the power of karma. Sakuya celebrates because, just as he said, the monk managed to win. Rimu says she never imagined such a secret class, but Yukinoju warns that it's too early to celebrate, as they won't win with just a trick like that. They shouldn't underestimate the Ezras. Hiro then plants himself on the ground, facing his opponent. He says he doesn't even have enough divine power to maintain this form, so he gathers his energy, saying that in that case, he'll go all out one last time. Energy begins to emanate from his body. Blood then splatters on the ground. Yukio says his blood is a deadly poison. Then smoke fills the entire battlefield. The monk backs away. Jiro asks if it's a war drum, and Sakuya says it can't be. Hiro calls out to General Ares and offers the blood of the poisonous dragon, commanding him to grant him his spear. The weapon materializes in his hand. He says to fight until his body turns to dust. Rimu comments that it's a divine weapon, and even for them, it requires a sacrifice. Plus, they can only wield it temporarily since it carries the power of the gods. Yukinoju says there must be an insurmountable gap between normal players and Ezra's. Rimu reflects that Hiro offered the poisonous dragon that Ares gave him. If the gods see through this trick, they'll be angry, but Ares might forgive him if he wins. But on the chance he loses, she can't even imagine the punishment that awaits him. However, there's no way a normal player can beat an Ezra with a divine weapon. Hiro immediately charges forward. Yukio wonders if he's coming in for close combat, and he wants to know where the spear went, as it has vanished. So he jumps back, thinking Hiro shouldn't be able to reach him from this distance. But his face is cut by the weapon. Hiro commands it to explode now. The energy beside him shreds his robes. Yukio says that thankfully, he managed to defend with a mantra, just in time. The spear seems to be poisonous, just like the dragon's blood. The system announces that due to the corrosive effect of Ares' blood, the cloak has lost 50% of its defense. Hiro charges at the monk once more, attempting a strike that Yukio barely dodges. But blood arrows emerge from his back and fly toward him. Yukio wonders if he can shoot those things from other parts of his body, not just his fists. Hiro unleashes a barrage of blows, saying, "Let's see if you can dodge this." Each of his fists was armed with blades made from Ares' blood. Yukio thinks he has no chance, as he can't read his movements. Every blow he takes only destroys more of his equipment. Even with the impact suppressed by Karma's power, it's still strong. If he hadn't been weakened, he'd be dead by now. He needs to keep his distance, so he dodges one of the blows, attempting a palm strike toward Hiro. They both face each other. The monk begins to recite a Buddhist mantra and creates a seal on his palm. Hiro asks if he's already reaching his limit, but he shouldn't think that keeping his distance will save his life. The monk uses his silent Dharma chant. Suddenly, something forms above Hiro, forcing him down to his knees on the ground. The enchantment purifies and banishes obstructive forces, weakening the effect of the poisonous dragon's blood. Hiro says he was trying to seal his movements with a spell and close the distance. Then he releases his blood, saying he was too naive for that. Sakuya readies her energy and yells for Shuzenji to be careful. The monk dodges the blow, which hits his hat. He reflects that it was a close call, but the goddess appears in front of Sakuya, saying that interference will be punished. Fire begins to burn the man in agony. Yoi calls out to her husband and starts to heal him. Sakuya reflects that the flames are gone, but his life force has been reduced by 15%. Hiro says he would be dead if no one had gotten in the way, but it seems he was punished accordingly. The monk thinks that close combat is already dangerous, but Hiro can also control the blood arrows from a distance. Considering his remaining stamina, he probably has about 3 minutes left, but he has no choice but to fight. Hiro tells him to stop wasting his time, launching his attack and declaring victory, while the monk gathers karma in his body. He says that all dharmas become one, as he reflects that the ranks of a Rakan are the Celestial Eye, the Wisdom Eye, the Dharma Eye, and the Buddha Eye. So, to win, he opens his Dharma Eye. His pupil turns into a Buddhist symbol. The spear approaches the monk very quickly, but he reflects that with the effects of his Dharma Eye, his speed increases greatly. However, it won't last long, so he must find an opening. That spear wasn't concentrating as much divine power as he expected, and more importantly, that blood arrow from before was behind him. Yukio realizes he's figured it out. He stops the spear with his hand and the arrows with divine energy armor. Hiro wonders how he managed to predict his attack. The monk asks if this is his great blood spear, and contrary to his expectations, it was nothing special, as he shatters it to pieces. Hiro says that's impossible. Yukinoju asks how he managed to defend against blood threads as thin as a strand of hair, and Rimu says that I seem to be able to see everything. Sakuya celebrates, saying he actually has a chance. After all, the monk had a plan to deal with Ares' Ezra. Yukio says that given the amount of malignant energy accumulated inside his body, it's no wonder that evil thoughts also arise, and he will exorcise it all, creating a seal in his hand. Hiro gets angry and asks, "So what if you can predict my move?" Because he can still control anyone whose blood has come into contact with his divine power. Rimu says that the divine power residing in the blood isn't distributed equally. Besides, blood is relatively thin, making it easier to penetrate an enemy's defense. He wonders how he's going to solve this situation. Hiro tells him to bring it on, since there's nowhere left to run. He then creates blood arrows and sends them flying toward the monk. Yukio simply activates his Dharma eyes. Hiro immediately falls to the ground. He starts trembling from the pain coursing through his body. He asks how that bastard did it. As Yukio stops the blood arrows with his seal, he begins to recite a very long Buddhist chant about the Wheel of Samsara. Rimu shouts to be careful with that eye, as she can see the movement of divine energy in it. All of his attacks are useless against him. Jiro realizes what she had done, yelling, asking if that woman intends to interfere in the fight. Athena glares at him, annoyed, but says that was the first warning for her. Jiro yells that his boss got a direct penalty, so why did she only get a warning? But Sakuya tells him to drop it. They'll pay attention to how he's going to achieve victory. The monk gathers energy in his hands to press the seal. Hiro complains that he doesn't need her help, but then something catches his attention. He recognizes that manifestation of Dharma and his sutra, which was that of Fudo Mayoo. He then gets angry, yelling that he's a damn monk for that. Yukio continues to recite, not stopping or reacting to his insults, thinking that it's something monks learn right at the beginning. He wasn't weak at all, quite the opposite, since harboring Fudo Mayoo within himself multiplies his power. The only downside is that besides taking over 30 seconds to recite this sutra, he can't get distracted at all during the process. That was why there is no greater humiliation than reciting this in front of your enemy. Hiro starts cutting his arms to create more blood arrows. Rivers of blood fall to the ground and begin to move. Rimu thinks he's an idiot. Hiro thinks that as long as he breaks this seal, he should be able to stop him from reciting the sutra. Then he yells for the monk to go to hell over and over again. Yukio thinks that with his ability to contain the dragon's blood, he needs a high amount of divine power to undo it. Before his Dharma eyes, his attacks are useless and won't even leave a scratch on him. Hiro yells for him to die, thinking he only has 15 seconds left. Besides, blood is coming out of the monk's eyes, and he was already at his limit, wondering if he can't even break his focus. Fudo Mayoo materializes behind the monk. Yoi smiles as the sutra's countdown reaches 9 seconds. Rimu sighs, and Yukinoju murmurs in anger. Sakuya and Jiro are happy about the victory. The monk continues reciting until he reaches the end of the sutra. The energy hits Hiro's body all at once, completely wounding him and knocking him unconscious. The monk concentrates his energy, thinking that he somehow managed to finish before his Dharma eyes reached their limit. Athena announces that the first victory belongs to the Alliance. Shuzenji Yukio had won the first round. Rimu heals Hiro with her magic. She asks if he's feeling better, but the young man just looks down. Hiro was completely hopeless. Rimu begs him to please hold on, but something approaches from behind Hiro. 2 armed spirits get his attention. They mock him for losing in Athena's hypocritical arena, calling it disgusting. Hiro apologizes for it, but the spirits scream for the loser to shut up. They've brought a message from his father saying he's disappointed in him, so he should feel honored to be punished by them with their swords. Hiro is whipped on the back, beaten relentlessly by the Sons of Ares. Sakuya asks if he'll really go so far as to punish his own Ezla. The Sons of Ares say this is the last time their father will show him mercy. Then they begin to disappear. Hiro just calls out Shuzenji's name, warning that next time, he will definitely take his life. Yukinoju says that unfortunately there won't be a next time, because he's going to make them all pay, and he draws a scythe, wanting them to burn in the eternal fire of Hades. Sakuya looks at him seriously, then tells him to leave it to him. Yoi says he is the Esla of the death god, and his power is linked to souls and such, so she thinks it will be useful to him. Sakuya says he'll put it to good use, and the item is stored in his inventory. The monk and Jiro wish him good luck. Then the young man heads toward the arena. He thinks about how the samurai class has a technique called sword energy, capable of pressuring enemies from a distance, but the problem is that it needs to be charged. First, he'll instantly close the distance with his opponent, then deliver countless slashes, leaving no room for a counterattack. And finally, after finding a weak spot, he'll strike directly and end the battle. It might seem too simple, but it's the most effective tactic. That said, if it doesn't work, he has another plan. Athena tells both fighters to take their positions and begin. Yukinoju immediately advances, attacking with souls from his scythe. Sakuya plans to use his instant step to get past the spectral barrage and study his attacks. He then slashes through his souls. Yukinoju is surprised by this. Sakuya appears behind him, and the Ezla says that samurai are idiots who can't even think until he's hit by his slash. Sakuya is shocked to realize he missed the blow as the souls envelop his back. The swordsman is then flooded with evil spirits as Yukinoju retreats. Sakuya cuts the spirits in half, charging straight at the Reaper. Yukinoju asks if that's all he's got, but he ends up being sliced in half by Sakuya. He then yells that it's useless, that his attacks can't hit a soul that isn't bound to a physical body. Sakuya turns, thinking it was in that direction. He then charges forward with another slash. Yukinoju bursts into laughter, yelling that it's no use and he should just accept defeat like a good boy. He has infinite spirits. It's not something Sakuya could ever finish, even if he slashed at them for a lifetime, whispering that a samurai like him, who can't even see the enemy he's supposed to cut, will never be enough. Sakuya focuses, thinking that in that case, he must charge up. Yukinoju interrupts, saying he won't give him time for that. The swordsman slashes in every direction, but the explosion surrounds him again. Rimu comments that this is a battle between an Ezla and an ordinary person. Hiro says he just got lucky, and the girl replies that he needs to remember it's normally impossible for someone of the samurai class to become a guild leader. Noticing something different about Yoi, who was in front of her, she thinks that even with her husband at a disadvantage, she's still calm. They might be hiding an ace up their sleeve. Sakuya cuts down one of the souls, then immediately retreats backward. Yukinoju launches more souls, asking if this is a new technique. Rimu shouts for him to be careful. The Ezla of Hades is startled. Sakuya cuts through everything in his path using the leap of the 8 vessels. Yukinoju wonders what just happened. When the 6th shelter was created, the military and players worked together to search for monster nests. It was then that, near the shelter, they found a mine where monsters were emerging, and it became the first dungeon. At first, since only weak monsters were coming out, things seemed to be in their favor. The problem was that upon entering the mine, everything around them had changed. The type of monsters, their numbers, and even their ranks. Inside the cavern, it was as if a unique ecosystem had been created, and in its deepest part, there was a level 80 spider monster. At that time, humanity had no chance of defeating that thing. But then, so that everyone could escape, Sakuya Mukushima took the lead in the fight, luring the monster away. No one really knows what happened after that. But the fact is, 3 days later, the spider's painful groans could be heard from the depths of the cave. Moreover, as if reacting to this, the cavern began to collapse, and amid the falling rubble, Sakuya Mukushima returned without a single wound. The skill he used that time was the very same one, Leap of the 8 Vessels, a terrifying technique that allows its user to perform 8 consecutive leaps, and with each extra leap, their speed increases exponentially. Sakuya thinks that to escape his attack earlier, he used the leap 3 times. This was his 4th. He launches off the ground, heading toward Yukinoju. The Ezla of Hades wonders why he's getting faster so quickly. A soul is cut down by the swordsman's attack. Sakuya thinks he was in that direction, so he uses his 5th leap. The sword rapidly approaches him, but it cuts another soul once again. Sakuya reflects that he was now above, leaping for the 6th time and making a slash. Yukinoju lands quickly on the ground, but Sakuya pursues him with the 7th leap, making a heavy slash into the ground. He reflects that through the inherited will of that hero, he has annihilated all the surrounding souls. Now, all he has to do is keep cutting them down. He then advances once more, his sword colliding with the scythe. Realizing that he can't keep up with his speed to generate souls, and if he continues like this and switches to close quarters, then he could win the fight. Using his inherited will from the Legend of Heroes, Rimu comments that it's no wonder he's held his position as guildmaster for so long, even without being an Ezla. That power must be the reason. Many theories about how the towers appeared have been created, but the most well-known states that the towers are the materialization of mythology and humanity. History and mythology are intertwined by a bond so deep they cannot be separated. And if there is an entity that represents mythology as a god, then there was the hero. Inheriting a will or being chosen as a warrior of a deity are different things. To receive divine grace, one must simply battle others. For the other, you needed luck. And that was what Sakuya had. Yukinoju says that he thought he could win if he forced a close-quarters fight, but he's sorry to inform him that a mediocre weapon can't defeat the Scythe of Hades. Sakuya thinks its appearance is truly terrifying, but he still has the advantage when it comes to range and attack area. Besides, considering it's a sacred treasure, humans can't wield it with maximum effectiveness, and if he tries to force attacks without considering the overall range, then he'll end up creating openings. Sakuya readies his sword, saying it seems Hades didn't teach him how to use his weapon. Yukinoju screams that it's bullshit and is stabbed in the chest. The young man says he figured he'd use his ability to dodge, but unfortunately, this was his 8th leap. Jiro shouts that he won the battle, but Yoi says no. The fight isn't over yet. Yukinoju starts to laugh at this, saying that seeing his proud face, thinking he'd won, actually made him chuckle. Sakuya wondered what that was. Did his ability not have a cooldown? Yukinoju asked, "When did I say I could only swap places with spiritual bodies?" He then clutched his heart. Sakuya felt the pain. This sucks. he thought. Then he backed away as fast as he could. The system notified him. You have been marked by the Seal of Hades. Sakuya realized he'd let his guard down. He couldn't believe Yukinoju could transform his body into a form that nullified physical attacks. Get marked 4 times and you'll become a soul and serve as my slave, Yukinoju explained. You won't get another chance like this ever again. Sakuya considered his options. If he closed the distance, he'd get touched and marked again. But if he didn't, the souls would surround him. It was a tough spot, and the problem was, even if he wanted to use the Leap of the 8 Vessels, it was still on cooldown. Then Yukinoju shouted his name. I recognize you're a capable man, but in the end, you're still just a mortal. He knew it was true. Even in his spiritual form, magic drained his energy, and the damage from magic attacks was amplified. But just like a soul, he could completely nullify physical attacks. His hand reached for the swordsman, but Sakuya slashed and quickly retreated. You're fast, but it's a pity, Yukinoju said, because it's not enough. He then slashed through Sakuya's guard. Sakuya received another Seal of Hades. Even if you try to run, it's useless, Yukinoju laughed as he advanced. Once you've been marked 4 times, the inside of your body will burst into flames from hell's spiritual combustion, and your flesh will rot and fall apart. And finally, your soul will be chained, and you will become my puppet. Sakuya glared at him, furious. Yukinoju's form shifted into a skeleton and began to fade. The swordsman realized what he'd done and yelled, Damn it! You forgot about Revenant Shade, Yukinoju said, touching him once more. Sakuya tried to retreat with a slash, but Yukinoju laughed. It's no use. The swordsman got as far away as he could. Yukinoju figured he was planning to run until his magic ran out, hoping the marks would be removed. But it's no use. I can maintain my intangible form for another 3 minutes. For him, the next mark will be fatal. Sakuya focused before his next move. Yukinoju smirked. He had decided to gather the sword's energy now. He couldn't believe Sakuya was foolish enough to create such an opening. He used Revenant Shade. Now you will become a soul. But the sword was drawn, crackling with electricity. Yukinoju attacked, thinking he'd already won. The sword's energy was physical, so it couldn't hit him. Sakuya cut through him with a perfect spin. He remembered the cloth his wife had told him about. Sakuya had tied it to his sword, and because of that, it was meant for this very moment. The paper had been dipped in temple water, dried in paradise, and then infused with a divine ability by a cleric. It was designed specifically to exorcise evil spirits, allowing it to cut through souls. This was when it would reach its maximum efficiency. Rimu reflected that just as Jiraiya had devised tactics to fight the samurai, that woman had also made her plans. Sakuya cut down all the souls around him. You did the same thing, but it's useless, Yukinoju sneered. I've already landed my 4th mark. Now you will burn with the spiritual flames of hell. Then you will become my puppet. But the swordsman resisted, holding his sword before him. Yukinoju wondered what was happening. Did you really think I'd just wait quietly to become a soul? Sakuya asked. Unfortunately for you, having my flesh burn only made me lighter. Now my cuts are faster. Yukinoju sent all his spirits to stop him. He thought it was strange. Sakuya shouldn't be able to do more damage in this spiritual form until he realized what had happened. He yelled, he was inside the cooldown window for the Leap of the 8 Vessels. Too late to notice that now, Sakuya yelled, cutting through everything in his path. He advanced, slicing through more souls before him, and appeared behind Yukinoju. The Ezra tried to retreat using his ghost form. Sakuya said, before you could turn me into a soul, he leaped, cutting through several souls in his path. I'm going to take your life. He then appeared at his back, slicing Yukinoju in 2. I can easily take a single hit like that, he said. Sakuya replied, if 1 hit wasn't enough, then I'll just beat you until you die, he yelled, unleashing a flurry of cuts. With that, Yukinoju lost consciousness. The swordsman sheathed his sword. Victory is mine. Outside, Makai electrocuted someone. He finished his fights outside the arena. This is a dishonor to the Ezra. With that said, he recommended Sora come quickly. Otherwise, things will end tediously. Inside the arena, everyone celebrated Sakuya's victory. Jiro shouted that the victory was his, but the monk said, no, this is bad. His negative energy was growing even stronger. It was incomparable to what he had shown earlier. I haven't lost yet. I just need 1 more chance, Yukinoju said. He repeated this once more as he used his energy. Skeletal hands opened a portal in the air. That's a pretty ugly scene for my big brother. Sakuya wondered what that was and readied his katana. Yukinoju begged him, just give me 1 more chance. But the skeleton warned, you can't win with just flashy-looking abilities. In the end, power is everything. That said, this is no problem. He exploded him while announcing, Both you and the enemy will lose your lives here. Sakuya wondered if this was the true form of the Ezra of Hades. Everyone outside asked what that monster was. Makai looked back, saying, "Things seem to be getting interesting." The monster approached the swordsman. "The first thing I did when I became an Ezra was take my older brother's life. After that, I lost count of how many lives I've taken. But it doesn't matter. When they die, people become my puppets, and your fate will be the same as theirs," he said, launching several souls at the swordsman. The seal of Hades reached one, and Sakuya wondered if it hadn't reset to 0. But his leap of the 8 vessels was on cooldown. He wondered if this would be his defeat. This feeling was quite nostalgic, as he cut through the souls endlessly. It was the same thing he felt that time. Nothing he did worked. The paladin ran from the spider while calling for his leader. Sakuya was about to be hit by its leg again, but he commented, "It's no use. Until they all escape safely, I will not be defeated." The spider blocked the path of the group of adventurers. Sakuya shouted, "Wait!" thinking he wouldn't make it in time. He needed to do something to get its attention, but the problem was that it was too tough, and his blows had no effect. He wondered if it had a weak point, then noticed that sword. He threw his katana towards it. It hit the sword's sheath on the spider's head. Sakuya celebrated upon hearing the monster groan. That spider grunted once more. It ran after Sakuya, as the swordsman told it to come after him. The spider moved its legs quickly, attacking Sakuya's back. The swordsman landed on the other side of the tracks, getting up immediately after. The spider looked at him with rage in its final moments. Sakuya said it seemed this was his limit, but he thought he did enough since even alone, he was able to save countless people. Still, if he were stronger, he could have done more, until a voice told the human not to give up. A winged swordsman caught him and announced that he had come to save him. Sakuya thinks that in that moment, escaping death, he met a legendary figure responsible for teaching martial arts to the commanders, Karasu Tengu. He realized that it wasn't just monsters that came to his world, but legendary heroes too. Karasu takes him inside the cave. Sakuya thanks him for saving him, but questions his identity. The spirit introduces himself shortly after. He explains that due to the last wishes of a general who lost his life, he is looking for someone to inherit his will through this legendary blade, the Kumogiri. That said, the spider-like Yukai was a being the sword had brought back to life. Engulfed in hatred, it launched a surprise attack on him. As compensation, Karasu thrust the sword into its head, and they ended up unable to take each other's life. That's when he saw him. Even without knowing the people he was protecting, he kept fighting. Because of that, Karasu concluded that he was the key. So he believes that with him by his side, they can kill that spider and recover his deceased friend's sword. Sakuya takes his hand, saying he's counting on him. From then on, Karasu Tengu stayed by his side and guided him. And thanks to that, he was able to learn the legend of the heroes. The problem is that due to his own lack of ability, he couldn't inherit all the skills he had left behind. Karasu Tengu says he only managed to master 3 of the 6 skills and believes that's enough to defeat the spider. The battle against that spider was fought to the very end. By using one of the 3 skills he managed to learn, the 8-boat leap, they were able to subdue it, and he made a cut on the spider's head. After that, he received the Kumogiri Hoimaru and made a promise. He said that if he ever found someone more worthy of inheriting the will, he would deliver the sword to them and send them his way. Back in the present, Sakuya gathers all his energy into the sword, cutting down the evil spirits around him. He says that not once did he ever think he was worthy of this blade. Slicing right through all the phantoms, they are obliterated, but always return to the same spot. Sakuya readies his sword, saying that even so, he has no choice but to borrow its power. He then draws the greenish blade. He says that if he loses his life in a place like this, he won't be able to keep the promise he made to the one who saved him, so he prepares his sword. Sakuya cuts down all the phantoms around him. Outside the arena, everyone is surprised. Jiro wonders if that sword is really enough to defeat that thing. Rimu says that although it's the inherited will of a hero, he is still human. A god cannot be defeated by human weapons. Hades gathers even more energy in his body, thinking the aura from that katana must mean he's afraid, so he commands his servants to take his life now. The phantoms charge toward him, but Sakuya repels them with his white energy. He thinks that ever since the general defeated that monstrous spider with this legendary sword, it has carried the power to repel evil energy. He strikes back at the evil energy with his sword. He didn't know how effective it would be against a god of the underworld. A phantom's arrow pierces his thigh. Sakuya continues to affirm that he can do it. He declares that he just needs to pour all his magic power into it, screaming for his Kumogiri to roar. He unleashes dozens of slashing gusts that tear through all the phantoms coming at him. The monsters think nothing will happen, but they are destroyed moments later. Everything begins to shatter in Sakuya's wind slash. Hades thinks he's quite strong, but he prepares a transmutation circle in his hand, warning that he's still not on his level, as Sakuya attempts an upward slash. The gust collides with the circle. Hades shouts, asking if he thinks a simple human hero's weapon can harm him and that he will turn his hopes to ash. The wind slash approaches the magic circle. Hades wonders what that annoying sound is. Rimu covers his ears. Everyone on the other side does the same. One of the transmutation circles begins to crack. Hades covers his ears as well. Then, finally, his attack dissipates. Sakuya says that he might be able to block the damage from the Kumogiri Hoemaru's blade, but he can't do anything against the sound waves it releases. He then charges, thinking that this sword, true to its name, emits sounds like an animal's growl, which disrupts the enemy's movements. It seems to already be taking effect on Hades. Now is his chance to strike back. Hades reflects that he used that sound to paralyze him. Still, it's better not to celebrate too early. Due to his divine blessing, the Kumogiri Homaru's effect is reduced from 20 seconds to 10. Hades thinks that the moment his opponent thinks he's won is precisely when he is at his weakest. Sakuya thinks he needs to be faster. He must reach his peak speed right now. He thinks this will be his last chance, but Hades shifts his gaze toward him. Sakuya realizes the effect is already wearing off. He charges forward thinking, damn it. Jiro asks if he's going to make it. Hades denies it as the slash approaches. Sakuya is shocked, thinking he won't be able to attack in time. Hades says this is his end. Then Sakuya begins to be controlled by the god. Sakuya is trapped in Hades' hand. That god starts to give a hearty laugh, saying this was his end. And now you shall become my puppet. Then he reaches the fourth seal of Hades. But then something different happens. Everyone outside was gathering their energy. Yoi thinks they can't just stand by and watch him die. Athena appears before them, warning that no one is permitted to interfere in a divine battle, but a bolt of lightning strikes right after. Athena wonders who is there. Rimu feels that vibration and recognizes it. He wonders if someone is trying to attack the barrier from the outside, but the chief is watching over it. The clouds remain dark, but emit a loud noise as something tears through everything in its path. Athena turns, completely surprised, but she is quickly destroyed by the attacks. Rimu asks if the barrier broke, and moreover, if that thunder belonged to the chief. Hiro yells for her to look over there, showing Sora trying to break the barrier with lightning, thinking he still has time left. Rimu thinks that's the Thunder Lance, which only the chief can wield. The golden bell curtain and the magic shield defend Sakuya. Shuzenji says the barrier is broken, and they have to help him, and Yoi says they were counting on him. Sora prepares another strike. How about you try this on for size? He fires the lightning bolt at the god. Hades complains, damn it, and asks, so what if you broke my barrier? Your father is already one of my puppets. A stone pillar rises beneath Sora. Jiro yells for him to go now. The protagonist thanks him immediately, advancing toward Hades' arm. The god asks what that is, as his arm is split into two pieces. He holds his hand, talking about it, while Sakuya falls to the ground with the claw. Everyone is stunned. Sakuya pries open the god's fingers, warning that no one there was permitted to die without his permission. Hades screams that he's a damn bastard. Sora thinks his father did well to hold on for so long. But that said, this skeleton is no problem at all. The real problem was the guy throwing lightning from outside the barrier. Ever since he left the abyss, that was the strongest being he had encountered, where Makai says he has arrived. For some unknown reason, his lightning attack caused no damage at all. Not only that, but he had also been able to control his power easily. It was strange. The lightning continues to strike everything there. Sora thinks this is not the right time to think about that. First of all, he has to defeat that man. Makai says this is very interesting. Hiro calls him out a few times. He says that now that the barrier is broken, they don't have to follow those damn rules anymore. Then he shouts at the damn bald man. He charges forward, announcing another round. Rimu thinks it's strange that her boss isn't intervening with Hiro getting out of control. This means he wants to see how far that kid's power goes. If that's the case, she can't just stand by and do nothing. She summons her shield. She then yells Iwagaya's name, telling him not to just watch like a spectator. Iwagaya asks why she doesn't mind her own business, explaining that assassins wait for the perfect moment to strike. Rimu yells that Shiraya only lost an arm and should join the fight too. He says that even if she hadn't said anything, he was already planning to do it. Gathering his energy, he says that no one can escape the Reaper's grasp. He then lunges forward. The evil spirits move towards Sora. He says he'll leave his father with the old man, and Jiro agrees. Slamming the ground with his powers, he then creates a stone barrier at his back. Sora thinks that with this, he can fight freely, and anyone who tries to lay a hand on his father will die. Hiro and the monk continue to exchange blows, but he's immediately surprised. Sora interrupts the fight, declaring, "You're first." Hiro tries to defend himself with the Fang of Cadmus, commenting on the absurd speed, but the protagonist hits his arms and sends him flying with a kick. Rimu is surprised as Hiro is sent flying as far as possible, thinking that the idiot couldn't even take one hit. Sora tells Shuzenji to take care of the spirits. The monk begins to pray to Buddha, dealing with the spirits with his karma energy. Rimu is surprised by all this, thinking that Shiraya's spirits can't do anything against that monk, and it's probably an ability compatibility issue. She then throws her Valkyrie shield. Sora just catches it with one hand. Rimu charges with a sword, thinking she'd rather not fight this monster if possible, but there's nothing else she can do. Sora strikes her arm with his wrist, hitting her in the face right after. He then continues to beat the girl relentlessly. Rimu thinks that the boss still hasn't done anything. Makai sighs, muttering about this trash, wondering if they've forgotten they are under the effect of the curse. So he'll dedicate this blow to Mukushima's wife looking at the ball of energy. Shuzenji thinks he was planning to aim that terrifying mass of divine energy at Yoi. He knows it will be reckless, but if there's nothing else he can do, he then activates the Dharma eyes, thinking he needs his spiritual form as soon as possible. Makai questions if he thinks he'll make the same mistake as Hiro and give him time to recite his attacks. Shuzenji thinks this is bad. Then the Ezra of Zeus tells these insects to go to hell, firing a blast of energy from his artifact. A massive lightning bolt heads toward the rock. Sora wonders what that was. The lightning strikes the rock beside him. Everything around is destroyed. Sora looks to the side and tries to defend himself, seeing only debris there, with his mother's hand sticking out. Sora tries to call out to her, running towards his mother. A shield is thrown in his direction. Sora tells her not to dare get in his way, then deflects the weapon, thinking that the strength of her shield had increased to something greater than before. Rimu advances, asking if he felt that. With the curse lifted, she's back to level 106. Sora thinks it's an absurd power and tries to block. He then yells for her to get out of his way, wondering why he can't move her. Rimu says that given the fact the weakening curse his mother cast has been lifted, it can only mean she is dead. Sora tries to strike with his hand and tells her to shut up, but Rimu dodges. The protagonist moves away, and Rimu reflects that he's lost the will to fight. Weak-willed humans like him are her favorite kind of prey. She launches her divine energy, piercing him. Sora can barely move as he's consumed by it. Rimu thinks she's got him. The protagonist falls to the ground. Rimu wonders if he took any damage. She then tries to use her scanning eye. She thinks it's impossible. He has more divine power than the other gods, and on top of that, it's like there's a black hole inside him that sucks in all divine power. She wonders what kind of monster he is, because it still doesn't seem like he can freely control this power. It's no wonder the boss ordered him to be killed. He's someone they can't allow to live. She activates her sacred vow, boosting her attack and defense by 25%. She yells for Shiraya and Iwagaya to join her, as they are going to take his life. Hades says that now that the curse is lifted, he can summon his weapon, and moves his spear. Iwagaya reflects that they just need to finish him before he develops more power, because if he somehow manages to master it, he'll surpass even the gods. Rimu prepares an attack, thinking it ends now. Sora looks at his mother's hand, crying, but something in the rocks moves. His mother manages to show she's still alive. They all try to use their attacks to seal Sora's movements. Yoi moves her hand towards her son, then it goes limp right after. He grabs her hand immediately. All the Ezras wonder if they can't even restrain him. Sora keeps digging non-stop, crying more with every move. He's in denial, thinking this can't be happening. Seeing his parents' lifeless bodies, he wonders what to do, and his mother places a hand on his face, telling him it's enough. Sora says he won't accept this. His mother tells him not to worry about them, that he needs to escape. From now on, he must follow his own path, and they will always be watching over him. Iwagaya thinks this is his chance. He then lunges with his dagger, telling him to die. The blade closes in on him. Sora looks back with a terrifying presence, appearing right in front of Iwagaya's face. He strikes, sending the assassin flying. Iwagaya wonders if his dagger, forged with divine power, actually broke. He then tries to use his speed to retreat behind Rimu. Rimu says he must be kidding, breaking a weapon made of divine power with his bare hands. We can't face him alone, but her shield starts to give way. Sora strikes her relentlessly, shattering her shield with each consecutive blow. Rimu is completely terrified by this. The protagonist warns that he'll tear them all apart. Rimu realizes he's absorbing the divine power and getting even stronger. Then the protagonist throws her far away. The girl screams for everyone not to use their divine power. But Sora charges, and she notices he's too fast. She won't be able to dodge it. She's sent flying as far as possible. Iwagaya thinks he's a monster. Sora shifts his gaze towards him, charging at him right after. Iwagaya thinks it's impossible, wondering how Sora even noticed him. Not only was he absorbing their divine power, but he had also completely seen through his stealth. Hades yells that he seems to be fighting without a care, but he's forgetting something. Leaving his mother, who looks like she could die at any moment, to go fight shows what an ungrateful son he is. Shuzenji says he won't let him do that, charging towards Hades, but he ends up getting hit by his foot, as Hades tells him to die. Sora calls out Shuzenji's name. He then charges in that direction, thinking, "You bastard." Iwagaya admires Hades for this. Hades thinks that, as expected, He came right for him. Then he yells for him to take this, unleashing his flames of hell. Sora thinks, shit. Hades observes the damage from his attack, but the protagonist had managed to defend himself. Hades says that kid can absorb divine power, so let's see just how much he can take. He throws more of Hades' flames at him. Rimu says that idiot was just giving his enemy more experience points. Neither divine power nor close combat is effective against him, so he says he already knows. Sora says it's useless, punching the flames with his fist. Then he turns his attention to his hand, seeing several rocks approaching his mother. Rimu says that while direct divine power can't hurt him, she can still use it to envelop, strengthen, and launch rocks at high speed, which could kill his mother. Sora screams that she's a bitch. He knocks the rocks away with his hands, but some of them hit his body right after. The girl says they have to keep it up and attack all at once. They hurl rocks thinking Mukushima has to die. Sora bats the rocks away with all his might. He gets hit in a few spots, and besides hitting his mother, she cries saying he's done enough. Sora yells, "No!" and keeps defending her. He declares he'll kill all of them because if he can't protect his family, there's no point in living. Makai says it's a touching moment between parent and child, but it just makes him want to puke. He then summons a weapon, asking what the problem is if he can absorb divine power. With this, he'll end this pointless battle using the Blade of Atropos. Makai says the goddess's divine weapon severs the threads of fate. It can cut through any divine power, and if he does it with an arrow, he definitely won't be able to defend himself. He then announces he'll use it to sever his fate. Shuzenji starts coughing right after, saying that divine power was a bad thing. Then he yells for Sora to get out of there. Iwagaya puts a dagger to his neck, saying he doesn't have time to worry about others. Sora holds out his arms to block the rocks. He wonders what that was, and sighs, crying as he sees the attack that follows. His mother calls out to him and hands him the cloth, saying she loves him, right before she's hit by the thunder strike. Makai watches the arena get destroyed by his arrow. The system announces that the offering to Zeus is complete, and the gods are pleased. Then he descends to the ground. Rimu asks if he's really dead. Makai says Zeus acknowledged his offering, and that's not what they need to worry about now. The other guilds will see what they did as a declaration of war, so they need to prepare. Elsewhere in the world, he falls into a river. Sora sinks to the bottom. In a cave full of stalactites, the soldier pulls Sora somewhere else. He wonders if he's alive, and where he is, and where his father and mother are, begging them not to say they're gone. Then he wakes up completely. The soldier says it looks like he's awake, and the protagonist says he wanted to protect them. That soldier says a grown man like him shouldn't be crying. It's pathetic. Sora asks who he is. That soldier turns away without answering. The protagonist asks if he was the one who saved him, and if he knows where his parents are and if they're alive. That man replies that he seems absurdly weak for someone who was also chosen by them, so he must accept reality. His parents gave their lives for him. Now he must follow him. Sora turns, saying no, he's going back, and tells him to let go, repeating it as he readies his fist, noticing he can't put any strength into his punch. That soldier tells him to stop throwing a tantrum, then throws him away. The soldier asks if this is how he repays the person who saved his life, and if he can save his life, he can also take it. Sora groans in pain, calling out to him. That soldier explains that his connection to divine power was severed by the Blade of Atropos, and without divine protection, he's no different from a normal human. He places his sword on the ground, announcing that the person they're about to meet can restore his connection to divine power. He can also teach him how to control it properly. Then he asks if he'll come with him. Sora clenches his fist in anger, but he agrees with the soldier and takes his hand. Then he says he'll go with him. The soldier says that, by the way, he shouldn't think of him as a good person, because he's his enemy from now on, so he should keep his guard up, until a voice asks them to please wait, and the soldier asks who's there. Shuzenji says he can't let the son of his deceased friends go without knowing his identity. Sora smiled when he saw the monk. Shuzenji apologizes because he couldn't protect their father. He himself only survived because he was thrown underground by the tremor from the impact of that attack. As long as he's alive, he'll make sure to fulfill his promise to his parents. If he plans to use his divine power for something evil, he won't forgive the soldier. He says those are big words for a man on the brink of death. Shuzenji says he's right, that he was a pathetic man for clinging to life and fearing its loss, so he has no excuses for that. That said, if he doesn't keep his promise, he won't be able to look his parents in the eye in the next life. That soldier tells him to stop playing tough and let the brat decide for himself. Sora calls Shuzenji's name, saying he wants to defeat them now, but there's no way. So for the sake of his revenge, he doesn't care if he's being used, he'll go with him. Shuzenji understands what he's saying. Then he calls the boy's name, saying that since that's the case, he won't stop him. But he should at least take this katana. It's something his parents left for him. Sora feels it. Sora focuses on the sword, thinking he's sure. This was his father's and mother's power, and that wasn't all. Shuzenji asks if he can feel it too, as it's a weapon passed down through generations of heroes, and it records the memories of those who wielded it, though it's not always active. Sora says it's a sword that remembers those who wielded it. The monk replies that Yoi trusted he would one day be able to use it, so Sora should keep it. Then the protagonist thinks he'd need the power to see the future. That soldier asks if they're done, and Sora confirms. He wonders why it feels like he's being thrown from one problem to another. First he escaped, then he returned to his parents, and now he's leaving again, wondering where he's going now, and what awaits at the end of all this. The three of them walk through the cave. Shuzenji says he can't believe such a massive space existed down here. The soldier asks why the hell he's coming with them. The monk replies it's to protect the son of those who have passed. That soldier gets annoyed right away, saying that they could easily kill him if they wanted, yet he still says he'll protect him. But Shuzenji says that's not it. The soldier asks what the hell he meant by protecting the son of those who have passed. Shuzenji replies that he will use his life. Yoi always said that as long as he followed the plan, they'd get the best results. But look at how things ended up. He was sick of things like prophecies, and the only thing he'll put his faith in now is his own life. Sora looks at him, a little apprehensive. The soldier turns and says that's fine, but when the time comes to face God, he shouldn't interfere. Sora stares into the void, thinking. Then he remembers what she said about the best results, as long as he survived. Maybe for his mother, this was the ending she wanted. Shuzenji says, about this so-called god trapped in the cave, he wants to know if they really have divine power, or if it's all just made up. The soldier scoffs in anger, saying he'll find out soon enough, and the moment he witnesses it, all his doubts will vanish. Sora then notices a presence. Thinking it couldn't be, he wondered what god the man was talking about. The soldier entered the room, stating that this god's name was not one to be taken lightly. Enough talk, we're here. Sora said the place was huge. The soldier moved his hand, concentrating. He announced that with the flames in his hand, he would present himself before the god. Divine energy formed in front of him. 3 triangles then appeared, opening the massive door. The soldier told him to enter. Since God did not permit Shuzenji to join, he would have to wait there. The monk warned him to be careful of the god in this cave. The divine power within him was abnormal, and the god might try to exploit it. Sora said he understood, and the soldier told them to go. They stood before the door. The soldier told him to proceed, for the god of deception and flames awaited him. Sora pondered that title. He thought it didn't matter what kind of god this was, or if it wanted to recruit him, or even use him. After all, he would be the one in control. And so he entered the god's chamber. He descended the stairs without hesitation, but a magic circle activated at his feet. The young man glanced down. Outside, Shuzenji felt a massive wave of divine power. He then came face to face with a being on an immense throne. Sora approached without stopping. He's huge, he thought. Are all gods like this? A giant god of deception and flames. Just as he suspected, it was the Norse god, Loki, but the state of his body, it looked as if it were already rotting away. Loki then opened his eyes and said that he had finally arrived, but he was immediately surprised. The boy was staring at him without even a tremor. Clearly, this was no ordinary human. He then asked if he desired vengeance for his lost relatives. Sora replied that it was the only reason he had come. Loki said his relic was responsible for maintaining his connection to divine power, and repairing it would come at a steep price. Sora said he would repair his connection to divine power and do whatever Loki wanted. That was what he wanted to hear. Loki then fell silent. Sora asked if that wasn't enough, but the god was surprised. The protagonist said that what he wanted wasn't just divine power. He wanted absolute strength, enough to crush all his opponents. He questioned if Loki could give him that. Loki called him arrogant. Drawing him in with his power, he asked how he dared to speak to him that way. He held him in his hand. Sora said, "You brought me here because you need me to do something. So, you want to drain my divine power and use it to revive that dried-up husk you call a body." Loki called him an insolent worm and squeezed his hand. Sora asked if he was right. "Because if I'm wrong, just take my life and absorb my divine power." Loki said he really talked a lot. Sora said that maybe he couldn't do that. The deity sighed endlessly, admitting that he was right. His power was of Nordic origin, but he couldn't take it. Sora said that in that case, they were on equal footing. He thought that he knew it. The power he absorbed in the tower was Nordic. Still, given the fact that Loki, the second highest ranking Norse god, couldn't take it from him, it meant he had to be treated as a partner. Loki extended a finger saying he had some nerve for a mortal. Sora shook it, saying he'd take that as a yes to his question. The god said he should remember that in the myths, those who disrespected him never lived to tell the tale. Sora replied that such empty threats kind of ruined his cunning image from the myths. Loki sighed, saying he was a real pain. He coughed, then added, "Whatever, the way things are, I don't have much time left anyway. I'll summarize it for you," he said. Sora reflected that he was truly weakened, nothing more than a husk. "And since we're working together, I'll show some good faith Sora asked. "What's the plan?" Loki said he would go back to the tower. The protagonist remembered that place. Loki explained that there are 16 towers on this planet, each sealing the power of a different god. The Nordic towers, aside from his, have already been opened, but not a single one of the other gods has been awakened yet. They can't let foreigners take what belongs to them. Sora questioned why they hadn't awakened yet. Loki crushed something, saying they were betrayed and he would explain the rest later. But what Sora needed to know was this, that the Greek gods are their common enemy. He needs overwhelming power to crush his enemies, and so Loki would give him what he desired. He would even give him the luxury of choice. His first option was to consume the flames of the giant, Surt. His fire would burn away all the impurities in his power, refining it into something purer, thus becoming a primordial divine power that he could control. However, he would need to feed it with his own power, otherwise Surt's flames would turn him to ash. The second option was to plant the seed of Yggdrasil in his body. This would cause his body to evolve into a magical state as a host of divine power, allowing him to manipulate it freely, but this process would take ages. Sora reflected that Surt's fire would burn like a parasite, and the world tree would take ages to yield results. Loki said he had a third option, to fuse the two. The world tree would grow rapidly by feeding on Surt's fire, and the flames would burn its branches instead of his body. However, what awaited at the end of this journey was ruin, as he would be crushed by Ragnarok itself. If he lost control for a single moment, he would be instantly reduced to ashes. So he wanted to know what his choice would be. Sora said that he never planned on giving him a choice to begin with. He chose to absorb and fuse them both. Loki laughed, saying he liked to see that. The protagonist felt as if his body was on fire. A mark appeared on the back of his palm, and the seed in his other hand. He began to be burned by Surt's fire. Loki said that the two opposing forces were beginning to merge, and he asked who would have thought that the last hopes of the Norse gods would end up in the hands of a mortal. Elsewhere in the city, Fodel looked up, sensing something. Then he asked what that was. His power was being drained, and he couldn't let anyone reach the Nordic tower. In another corner of the city, two guilds faced off. Makai prepared a lightning attack. May was completely surprised by this. The guild leader said that this was the 17th tower, because they would be the ones to conquer it. Loki looked down, unreacting. Sora groaned in pain as he tried to merge the two powers. The soldier and Shuzenji looked on through the door, reflecting that the idiot was trying to fuse two opposing forces within his own body. Shuzenji begged Sora to hold on. The protagonist tried to withstand the energy in his body, but then he returned to the abyss. He wondered where he was right now. Sora wondered if this was his own conscious space, and he wondered if that was the seed of the world tree that had just been planted, because it was enormous. Then he looked behind him, wondering who that giant was. Sitting and reading a book, he was looking in his direction. The giant said that within this chaotic divine power, he could see his past. His mind was nothing more than a scorched land, burned by the flames of wrath. As a messenger of Yggdrasil, he didn't want to see another tragedy where a child loses their parents, and asked him to return this barren land to something fertile. Sora said he appreciated the offer, but believed it would come at a high cost. The giant replied that mutual aid was a better term. Choose me as your guardian, and Sora questioned this, but a voice says not to be fooled by him. Just like that, he chops off the giant's head. That axe flies back like a boomerang, now held by a spirit. She says he just wants to make him a slave to Yggdrasil. His plan was to turn the entire world into fertilizer for the great world tree. The giant places a hand on his neck. Then his head starts to grow back, and he warns that Surt desires something of an even greater magnitude, because he wishes to turn everything to ash. Surt steps forward, questioning if that's what he thinks. Then the two begin to stare each other down. Surt asks if he can't read the boy's mind, since, with the exception of the tree's rotten stump, everything has already been burned and turned to ash. The giant says that if that's the case, the choice falls to the human, because the choice is now his. But before you choose, you must read this carefully. He hands a sheet of paper toward him. Sora reaches out to take it, thinking that this is the book of the Ezra. For a mortal to become an Ezra, there are 3 steps. First, you must choose a guardian to represent the divine will, which makes you a candidate. Second, you must descend into the abyss and fight the other candidates. Third, you need to be the last one standing. Then, you will win the weapon of that god and control over the tower. The guardians are responsible for watching over the Ezra. In case you insult your god, they have permission to punish you and take away your divine power. The divine weapon allows the Ezra who wield it to channel their god strength in battle. Surt says he's a coward and should have been turned to ash long ago. Sora reflects that now he has the 2 of them fighting to be his guardians. Yggdrasil replies that it would be beyond his capabilities. The protagonist continues to reflect on how 2 entities were fighting over who would look after him. Any normal human would have already passed out right there. Then they both ask which one he will choose. Sora says they seem to have misunderstood. Because you're acting as if I should be grateful for the favors you're offering. Then he transforms, saying that in the end, the choice doesn't matter, because he'll just end up as their puppet. Sora says that won't do, and that they will be his puppets. Your power is already under my control, so you can stop acting so arrogant. Surt tries to free himself from his hand, but the protagonist feeds on him. Then he approaches to swallow Yggdrasil, feeding once more. Then he says that from now on, gods are nothing but food for him. Back in the present, the protagonist returns to reality. Loki asks which of the two he chose, thinking it's not like it matters, since he's already fallen into his trap anyway. Sora then looks at his palm, telling him to see for himself, and showing the two fused signs. Then he thanks him for his help and says he's leaving. Loki wonders